Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the second episode of A Manchester Requiem, a Vampire the Masquerade Chronicle set in Manchester, England. With me tonight. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to
Hi, I'm Sass. I'm playing Daniel of Clan Toreador.
Hi, I am Alicia. I am playing Lark of Clan Gangrel.
Hi, I'm Chris, and I'm playing Kit of Clan Malkavian.
So, just to give a quick recap on where we were last week. It is the year 2018. The Second Inquisition has now become a more dominant force in the UK, having a heavy effect in the province of London, but not quite to that degree in Manchester yet, which is where our story takes place. The coterie, which is a coterie of young neonates, has recently come to the notice of the local Camarilla, which is itself trying to deal with an incursion of anarchs. Anarchs which formerly held the domain and were ousted by the previous prince, Prince Wallace, a tyrannical being who was put to the torch, so to speak, by the anarchs when they tried to take their territory back. Held at bay by the new prince, the standoff has resulted in the anarchs taking the south, the west, and the areas to the north of Manchester, while the Camarilla holds the vast majority of the centre. And it's towards this southern border that this coterie has gained territory. For the best part of a year, they remain together in this no man's land. There aren't too many anarchs neighbouring their borders, but it's close enough that it is a somewhat tenacious affair, with everybody's hackles kept high, which is why this coterie has taken it upon themselves to put into effect security measures around their domains, little things that might tell them whether or not any of their neighbours have come too close. And it's from inspecting these that Kit, our very, very dutiful, very, very thorough Malkavian, has come to the realization that not only has someone been into the domain, they've left the coterie a little present in the form of a severely burned body. After relaying this information to the coterie have gone to investigate, and through Daniel's connections and his familiarity with the court of Manchester, he has realized that this body is one Zachary Pritchard, the ghoul of a very stellar rising Nosferatu by the name of Tracy Backer, someone akin to Daniel in terms of rising status. Whilst trying to remove this body from an impromptu plan quickly thrown together by the coterie, Daniel, whilst trying to distract some of the local kind to make sure that the body's removal wasn't noticed, became so utterly enthralled by his own performance that he forgot that he was still very much the semblance of a walking corpse, having not adopted the blush of life. Chasing after this body and throwing caution to the following after this young man who witnessed this masquerade breach, Daniel has now thrown caution to the wind and managed to catch him before he let off a scream to alert the public. With Lark and Kit very much unaware of the potential breach that's going on with their coterie mates, they have taken off in this stolen vehicle with the body of Zachary in the back seat. And that is where we left off. So, to begin with, since you guys have resolved yourself to dealing with this, I will allow you to recoup some of your willpower loss. So those that have lost willpower, unless you have a non-existent resolve or composure, you will get the willpower back. Around about the time that we start, it is just gone past 9 o'clock in the evening. The store that you guys were the takeaway that you guys were so worried was going to end up closing, with everybody rushing out towards this bin in which the body of Zachary was held, has now closed. People are working on the inside, the doors are locked, but you guys are no longer paying attention to that. You've already taken off down the street, specifically Lark and Kit. You have not seen where Daniel is standing anymore. He was formerly stood on the bus stop on your side of the road. He is not there anymore. You didn't see where he went. Where are you two going to head? This is not an aspect of your plan which was previously discussed.
So at the minute we're just driving, it's going to be a conversation we're going to have, I think.
Okay.
To work out what we want to do with it.
Okay, so you're just taking off down the road?
Yeah.
in the rough direction of your domain. Where you've pulled in, it will take you towards the edges, the southern edges of your domain. So you need to loop around and go back around if you wanted to go back into it. Or are you going to take out of your domain?
Well, we're taking out of the domain. The question is where out of the domain.
Okay.
So, yeah. Lark, being the one who's driving, will start heading away from the domain. Will start heading east, and will lean sort of to Kit and say, "We need to dump this in a ditch somewhere."
Specifically a ditch?
Something close to it.
So we might need to leave the city for a ditch, unless we dig one in the park, I guess.
I'm sure we can find one outside of the city. I'm not confident in dropping this in either territory or in that Nosferatu's territory. I think we need to make this disappear in a sense and let the kind find it.
If they find it in the Nosferatu, if they find it in the Anarch territory, then they'll know we found it and got rid of it.
Mm-hmm.
If we put it in Tracy's territory and she finds it, then it's her problem and she'll be the one dealing with the cook. And we can always help with that, but it's more than just us. But obviously we have to put it there without being seen.
Yeah, Mark.
Or outside the city, but we have to drive it through everyone's territory to get there anyway.
Lark will shake her head at the mention of dropping it in Tracy's territory. Just dumping it there, even if we tried to explain ourselves.
No, we can't explain ourselves. We drop it. We just have to drop it. But that ends this. Then Tracy was ending this. If we put it anywhere else, then we've solved this one, but not the next move, if that makes sense. Like chess. If we put it to Tracy, then she's the one playing the chess game. But if you put it anywhere else, we've blocked a move, but then the next move will come, and the next one, and we're not solving anything.
I don't think time is on our side to solve this right now. I don't want to bring it back to the Haven, and I don't want to drop it in any territory. We can drop it again where Kind might find it, and that is a move, but we need to make one.
Okay, do you know where there's a place that's not anybody's?
That's a good question, actually. ST, is there any territory I know of on the outskirts of the city?
On the outskirts? Do an intelligence plus politics roll, please.
Sure. Zero.
You have is that zeros with any skull?
That's with no skulls.
No skulls.
Should I roll that as well?
Yes, if you have politics as well. Did you get no successes at all?
None. No successes, no skulls.
Okay. 2 seconds.
That is that's okay. That's okay. I have 2 successes. So I thought I missed a crit for a minute, but I haven't. That's fine.
So you're not quite sure where specifically on the eastern edges are unclaimed. Most of the unclaimed territory tends to be towards the south, and the reason that it's largely unclaimed is that the Anarch presence there is heavier than it is towards either the west or the north. It's more expansive in the south than it is to the west, and it is far more expansive in the south than it is to the north. But in the east is more dangerous because it's other supernaturals which claim residency towards the eastern edge of Manchester. That therefore means that it's likely to be unclaimed by kindred. You have no idea whether or not what claims the Eastern Territories. You just know that most of the kindred tend to give it a wide berth. In terms of where you could abandon it, where people don't actively claim, towards the south would probably be better. But that's more because it's contested area than because anyone doesn't go there. Although Lark, you are pretty certain that if you were to drop it towards the south, you're more than likely to draw the ire of any anarchs there. East is probably the best bet for you. Because there's no kindred there.
Yeah, she'll keep driving east and
Okay.
Say to Kit, what is this our plan?
Well, it's a plan, yes, I assume. We just have to be careful that the further we drive, the further we have to get back afterwards. Are we driving back?
Yeah, we'll ditch the car somewhere else.
You do also know, Lark, that if you are worried about leaving it around the city, you do know somewhere remote where it might be better to dispose of it.
Oh?
You haven't gone there recently, but you know most people don't go there. And it's not only kindred or a kindred that's keeping people out.
I just want to make sure that we're talking about the same place.
Where your sire is.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. She doesn't think so.
Okay. So,
mhm.
Okay, so you're going to continue going east.
Yep, and first place we find, I won't drive too far east. The first place that we find that I feel like is, there's no cameras, there's low light, anything like that. We'll just find a spot.
Okay.
Unless Kit objects.
Well,
Right.
Kit will be happy, I think. Anyway, that's not in our territory.
All right, so with the map that you guys have, and keeping in mind where your domain is, give me a rough idea while I switch over to Daniel, whereabouts you'd like to go, how far, and the rough area, because this will relate to things.
Okay.
Daniel, you didn't see your coterie mates vanish around the corner as they overtook one of the finally late arriving buses, likely the bus that the individual you're chasing was waiting for, because it pulls into the same stop, masking the tail end of the car as it takes off down the street. But your attention is elsewhere. As this individual turned and saw you and seemed on the very, very cusp of screaming, you spoke. You met eye contact and you spoke. And the words came out not aggressively, but softly, so that it wasn't heard by anybody else, but he heard it. And as the scream began building in the throat and was on the verge of coming out, all of a sudden that just ebbed and died. And then with that same fearful expression on their face, begin following you into the alleyway. Obedient, but clearly not calmed by the situation. Clearly moving in with an expression of abject terror, but obediently just a following. And you're still in an alleyway where people, if they stop and have a look down, are going to see you. Okay. Where are you going and what are you doing?
Is this a fairly short alley?
Yes, it's a short alley, so it's like an L-shaped alley. You ran down one and turned right, and then it's kind of a stunted alley on that lower L part. So if that's the long alleyway that you ran down, you followed him out into this one. He stopped here before coming onto the road and is following you back this way. So this alleyway is exposed on two sides. Up here, which is the road that you ran off of, and over here, which is the one he was heading to.
But the road that I ran off of had only one person that was waiting for a bus, correct?
Yes, that you've seen. You don't know if anyone's gotten off the bus that just arrived.
Okay. Is it...
Because you're not watching. You haven't gone down there yet.
No. So I'll probably start to lead this guy back to the longer alley. Is it a very visible area, or is it fairly dim and shadowed that if anyone were to look from the long end, that
It's
they would be able
dim,
to
but
see?
not so dim that someone couldn't see it if they paid enough attention, because most of these alleyways are what connect most of the businesses around there with any bins they have to have. So due to health and safety, they have to be lit to a degree where people aren't just going to stumble over themselves and fall over. Now, that doesn't mean that the lighting overhead is too standard, as in brightly lit, and it certainly won't come on due to power saving until people come out. But dead though you might be, you are still motion, and it's lit the lights, but they are not brightly lit. So it's an amber glow, where if someone stopped and had a proper look, they could see, but they probably wouldn't be able to tell what you were doing without giving it a proper notice.
Okay.
But he is following you. You're not sure how long he'll follow you, because the command you gave him was quite a vague one.
Mm-hmm. And there's nothing in this alleyway? Any doorways, sort of alcoves?
Oh, there's doors
nowhere
connecting to the businesses.
Mm-hmm.
But these businesses, unlike the restaurant that your companions went towards, are open. Although they are very likely to either be closing up and then people are going to be coming out and leaving, or they are some of the stores or takeaways or similar that are open later and will be closing soon. Because at this point you've reached 9 o'clock at night at this point.
Mm-hmm. Oh boy. This is not ideal at all. So presumably it would be a risk to try to feed here.
It's a risk to try and feed anywhere in a city, but it's how confident you are that you can get away with it. Also, you don't know how long your command's going to work.
Mm-hmm.
Technically, he's fulfilling it now by following.
Yeah. Given my absolute lack of options, not knowing how long he will follow me for, I would probably take the risk while we are at the furthest end, not visible from the short alley because we've turned the corner. But
okay, so you've turned the corner of the short alley and you're in the longer.
Yeah.
Okay.
That is the best place that I could possibly do this right now, because I don't know if he'll even follow me beyond this alley, and he looks terrified. So if I try to lead him out and we are seen, people are going to wonder why this guy looks absolutely petrified to be obediently following behind me.
I mean, this is probably a first time for you that you've had a mortal put up this much resistance to your discipline, to the powers of the blood. But then again, normally when you do this, then it's not after such a monumental shock. And you get the feeling that any resistance he is putting up is basically through animalistic terror more than anything else. Mm-hmm. Because your slip-up wasn't a minor one. It wasn't just a short exposure of fangs. It wasn't just you weren't blinking for a couple of minutes. You're full-on corpsed. And you were speaking long enough and animately enough where the contrast between not breathing, not blinking, pallid expressions, sunken cheeks, everything that anybody that sees a dead person is going to know that person has been dead, especially one that looks like they've been dead for years but haven't rotted. You're not just a pale person at this point. But you manage to get them around the corner and they stop because you've stopped moving. And you're going to...
I will try to bite him.
Okay. All right. So your hunger is on
2.
Okay. Just roll me. We'll say dexterity plus brawl, or strength plus brawl, rather.
Okay.
I'll let you choose which of the attributes, because this isn't youth.
All right. I do not have brawl. So that would just be a raw dexterity check for me.
Okay.
Because this is only 2 dice for me, I'm going to rouse the blood. because I do
Okay.
not want to fail at this.
So do the action with the increased dice and then do your rouse.
Okay. One success.
So you turn the corner, and the moment you stop moving and this young man doesn't feel compelled to keep moving anymore, they stop and turn and glance at you, and you can see almost like a predator drawn to prey, because that is what you are. You notice the tightening of the tendons, you notice the way that their muscles bunch in the legs, and the way that the body shifts ever so slightly back the way they were coming. And these are all things that your mind, in its more narrow focused state, pick up on as a sign that your quarry is about to flee. And immediately, as he is about to move, your hand juts out and presses against the side of the wall, pinning him in place by catching the edge of his coat. And the way he's pinned against the wall, he begins panicking, grabs your arm. But the moment that he does so, he's already revealed the side of his neck that you wanted him to. And your head dips in and bites. And immediately, concerns vanish. No longer do you care that you're standing in the middle of an alleyway, exposed on one side. You don't care that somebody could come around that corner, someone could step out of these buildings and move towards the bins. You don't care that anyone... You wouldn't care if the constable or the sheriff walked down that... you wouldn't care if the sheriff walked down that street and saw you, because at this moment, the only thing that matters to you is this taste and the sensation of the blood going down your throat, and the very, very minute, albeit fleeting but euphoric sense of that hunger suddenly lessening. That pain in your stomach, in your chest, in your arms, and your legs suddenly uncoiling. How much are you taking?
So, for the rouse check, to do that brawl check, I did fail my hunger check. So my hunger goes up to 3.
Yep. So how much are you taking?
I will take 2 points of blood.
Okay. So you feel the warmth begin going through your body, and although you did blush before, the rosiness in your arm, which is still pinning him against the wall, and tightening on that fabric as you're pulling it taut, almost choking him in the same instance that you're biting him, you notice absently out the corner of your eye that flesh begins to bloom red as more blood is just pumped throughout your body. And it's eerie. Even in that very, very distant part of your mind, there is still a human part of you that realizes just how fucking warped that is. It's like someone injecting ink across paper. It's like ink spreading over white, but it's red through pale flesh. And then, finally, you pull away. And the beast in you is fucking pissed, but it's quiet enough that you smother it and put it back into place. And as you pull away, you realize that the grey that you had noticed in that pale flesh that you were noticing out the corner of your eye isn't your flesh anymore, because you blushed. But it's his flesh, because he's began to go pale from the amount of blood that you've been taking from him. And he is going weaker, and you realize the reason that your fabric is now the fabric that you're holding is now choking him is because his knees are starting to give out, and he's starting to slip down the wall. Are you doing anything else?
Did I take more blood than I intended to?
No.
Or is it because I've been choking him?
You get a feeling that it's partially that, and also even 2 points of blood is a fucking lot of blood to take. This is probably borderline where you can get him where he doesn't need to be hospitalized. Because 2 hunger doesn't seem like lots, but that is a lot of blood for one person to lose. They're certainly going to feel faint.
Okay.
Especially add to that the euphoric sense of undergoing the kiss and the fact that the mind warping effects of it. Add that to the terror he had moments ago.
Okay.
Are you doing anything else?
I'm going to lick closed the wound that
So you, as he begins slumping down, you follow him lower just to make sure he doesn't slip, to make sure that he can actually breathe, because you realize the fabric's now pulled taut across his neck. And as you let it go, there is mild blush of color from where the oxygen's returned to him, and then you lean in and begin licking. And the last few droplets of blood, which your tongue darts to of its own accord, are lapped up as you close over the flesh, and those pinpricks vanish. And then he finishes his descent and slumps, unmoving, breathing, but unmoving to the ground, as his mind is now the equivalent of someone that's been very heavily drinking for the rest of the night. What do you want to do?
So I have 1 point in medicine. I assume I can assess the state that he is currently in.
Sure. If you want to take the time to do that.
I'm curious if, for example, I would be able to move him somewhere in the state that he is in. Like, is
okay,
he
you got 1
conscious?
point. Yeah. So you're certain that you can move him. You didn't take. If you took more, there would certainly be a noticeable color shift in his skin beyond the paleness that he's currently got. It's an unhealthy paleness that suggests someone that's, that's lost a lot of blood, but not to the degree where you'd immediately see him and go, shit, that's fuck, get an ambulance. He's close there, but you've had a little while to practice this. You're able to recognize, eyeballing whether or not someone is on that state. And you are not addled enough in your own head, certainly not now that you fed, to think that, fuck, maybe I took this too far. He is breathing, and his breathing is regular, if slightly elevated to begin with, as it begins to settle, and he begins losing himself to that non-lucid state of being caught between senses that are muffled and disorientated from the residual end of the kiss.
Is he conscious?
Semi. He's responding to senses, but he's not very... You can tell from the lack of terror on his face now that he's certainly not registering you there as that same thing. But then again, he's not looking at you anymore. He seems very much kind of rolling head, kind of drawn towards the sound of a passing vehicle, and then kind of like trying to brace himself as though he wants to sit up, and then he can't. Anything else you want to do with him?
Given this is our... Yeah, a moment would be good. Given that this is our territory and I know it fairly well, is there somewhere that I can bring him from here that is more private or more secure?
That immediately leaps to mind is the heart of your domain.
Our haven?
Mm-hmm. Or your own, or any personal ones that are in the area.
Okay. How far am I? I'm bad
from
with
the communal
distances.
haven or from
My own haven? Well, both.
About 5-minute walk if you're carrying him. Carrying him probably about 10 minutes unless you're going quick. Have a ponder.
Yeah, thank you.
So you guys have been driving eastwards. Where roughly are you going?
Sorry, Kid will direct.
There is a industrial storage depot type of thing just the other side of the railway line, just south of Arden. Is it? What's it?
Ardwick train station.
Ardwick train station, that's the one. Which is probably a good place. It's out of our territory, hopefully well into Anarch territory, but going further it's not as safe really. Be a decent place to drop a body without being noticed, I think.
Okay. So is this east or south that you're going, sorry?
East.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like direct east of our territory.
Yeah.
Okay. So, are you going right down towards the railway? Or you're going into the rough area of?
So
you said you were going towards the railway, yes?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just the other side of the railway, so we have to cross the railway.
Okay.
And drive a bit until we see something appropriate.
Yeah.
Do me a favor, Kit, since you're driving. Do me wits plus
Lark's
drive
driving.
-2.
Lark's driving. Do you want me to do that?
Yeah. Sorry,
Okay.
Lark.
That's okay. Wits plus drive
-2.
-2. One.
Okay. So you continue to drive, and the city is still very much alive, even though the hour is now progressing and people are heading towards the center of town, trying to get ready for the evening, because after all, it's Saturday. Most people aren't working. Most people are getting ready to celebrate the weekend, as you want to do. This area is still relatively busy. Even at the late hour, with the last few trains coming and going, most people are still congregating, making their way wherever. Some people that are having late jobs and require a commute are doing so. But it's not heavy enough that you feel uncomfortable in the area. It's certainly not as busy as the closer to where your domain was, where most people were walking back and forth. And you bypass the railway line, going around on the outside. You can see all the signs dictating where this station is. And with a bit of direction from Kit, who knows this area relatively well, although you yourself have not actually been here, Lark, not to the eastern edge. You've been guided around the railway line towards this storage area, I believe you're going to.
Mhm.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. So you can see it. It's closed. There is no one currently in the office, and the doors themselves are actually locked. You can see the sign depicting that this is indeed the place that you were looking for. Getting inside is different. Is going to be more difficult if this is where if you're planning on dropping him in, or are you planning on leaving him where?
There's a lot of like big, the big metal containers that go on the trains, and there's a lot of like rubbish piles and things. So we leave them half buried, hopefully.
Okay.
Kine will find him, and then that's their problem and Tracy's problem, and not our problem.
Okay. So you're both gonna carry him out?
Yeah, just before we take him out, I will take one last try to go through his pockets. I had done that very briefly earlier, but now that he's out completely.
Kit will check surroundings, check there's no cameras or anything or anyone watching.
Okay. So I will need a wits and awareness roll from Kit, and
Okay.
from Lark, just do me a wits plus investigation.
Can I get heightened senses on this one?
Yep. It's a quiet enough area where you can keep those out.
I'm going to burn willpower.
Okay. So that's
Well,
one superficial point of damage.
Well,
Yes.
since I managed to get one
Oh,
success,
wow.
burn some willpower.
I got a rather happy roll. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it's a crit. So
Okay.
a crit is worth 4, correct?
Yes. Is it
1, 2,
a
3.
Hungerborn crit or is it a normal
No.
crit?
It's a nice
Okay.
one.
Awesome.
Three,
A nice one.
six-
The red
yeah,
ones
so
are a
that-
nice one. Just ask for us.
So that's 7 total. It's quite good.
Okay.
I
So
got 3 successes.
3. Okay.
It's a scary amount of notes.
Not frozen.
So, you can tell based upon Kit, as you've been looking around, Lark has begun giving a more thorough pat down of this body, which is not a pleasant thing to do because as you roll, are you doing it in the car or outside the car?
In the car.
Okay, so even as hidden as she is from the back of the car, in the cramped confines of this quite old vehicle, you can see her beginning to unroll the tarp and doing her best not to disturb the body and knock it off of the seat. She begins patting it down, but your focus is more outwards as you're trying to note any placements for cameras, any observers. Fortunately, there are no people coming around. The one or two people that you can hear don't come into view, so they're passing by outside of visual range of where you guys currently have pulled in. There are no cameras that you can spy. There's none that actually covers the area where you're planning on leaving this body. However, you do get a very, very, very odd sensation. You're pretty certain that if you were still alive, the sensation is probably the equivalent of what you'd feel if you got a sudden and very, very unnerving sensation of goosebumps, as though you were basically being observed or watched. Meanwhile, Lark, you've been patting him down and you've reached into the pockets. And now what you pull out looks to be a wallet, but it is not the kind of wallet that matches the quality of the trousers that are currently intact. This is a wallet that, based upon a rough visual guess, looks like it had cost almost about £150 just to get. It is an expensive looking wallet. It's undamaged. Despite the fact that it's come from a burnt pocket, it's untouched.
Okay.
And inside, you can see an ID that depicts someone that does not look like the man whose face is unblemished by the flames, that is currently residing in the back of the car. The name on this identification reads Darren Cormie.
Okay.
Someone that looks to be in their 50s.
Okay. I'll pocket that.
Okay. That is all that you find on him.
Okay.
Based upon a more thorough pat down, you even managed to go through the shoes, slowly taking them off, checking them, just make sure that nothing's hidden in either the grooves or underneath, make sure that there's no slips. You're very, very thorough in your check, and you are 100% confident by the time you pull your head out from the car, because obviously you've blushed life, so it's not a pleasant smell to be around. Not only can you smell the lingering traces of the rubbish that this individual was left in, you can smell the charred flesh. Most humans probably wouldn't be able to pick it up this long after the burning, but your nose can. So you pull yourself away, close the door, and you have this wallet in hand.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, Kit is currently standing, staring off in the direction of where the rubbish piles are, but he seems to be looking past them. Kit, you are not sure why you have this sensation. What is your willpower currently?
4.
Can you roll 4 dice for me?
Okay, does that include hunger dice or just...
Nope.
Nope.
Base dice.
3 successes. Oh, that's a crit, so... Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, so 2 10s and a 6, so that I can't add for some reason. That's 5, isn't it?
5, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. You get a very, very, very strong sensation that you are being observed.
Okay.
You know that someone is there. You can't see their silhouette with your own eyes, but you are certain you can make it out in your mind. You know someone is there observing you. You know they are not kindred. You know they are not kind. And you get a very, very strong, very pervasive, intimate, and terrifying sensation. It's the same one that you've handled now for a number of years, but never become accustomed to. And it's telling you that this is a very, very bad idea.
Okay. Look, get back in the car. We need to go. This is not the right place. We need to go now.
Okay. She'll jump back in the driver's seat. Take his word on it.
Keep back in as well, and then just keep looking that direction whilst hopefully Lark drives quickly out.
Wherever he's looking, I go the opposite way.
Okay.
And
So he's just looking back in the direction of the piles where you were going to drop it. There's nothing beyond them. There's a fence, and beyond that you can see a slight grass slip, and then the edge of the rise seems to dip slightly just out of view. So you can't see anyone standing there, but he's staring as though he's looking at someone. And he's still watching even as you drive off, Kit. Even though you can't see anyone, your eyes are fixated on it. But then that sensation does not leave you even as you pull away. That sensation begins to twist.
Okay.
And although you are no longer feeling that needle-like sensation in the base of your skull, and we're not talking like that prickling sensation, it feels like someone's driving a needle into the bottom of your skull. There is a sensation that you are going the right way. But then every now and again it shifts as though to say you're not, and then you are, and then you're not, and then you are. And you get this overwhelming sensation that you need to get rid of this body. This isn't something anymore that you need to do because it is safe. This is something that you need to do.
Kit will give Lark instructions depending on where he gets the sensations about where he should go. And as soon as we find a suitable place we could stop and dump the body without being seen, he'll tell her to try stopping there and see whether that's acceptable to whatever it is.
Okay.
So just basically play hot and cold with it until we find the first dumping place that
whatever
it is thinks is acceptable.
Alright, so Lark, are you doing this?
Yes.
The directions that you're being given are very erratic.
That's okay. She is, for her own reasons, will listen to Kit and will hold on to any questions until we reach her, until we're done.
Okay, so before I cut back to Daniel, Kit, roll Resolve.
Okay.
Plus Composure.
Okay.
Plus your Bud Potency.
Okay. With Hunger Dice.
Yes.
Two successes. Both on the Hunger Dice.
What successes? Normal ones?
One's a 10 and one's an 8. So yeah.
Okay. Right. Do me that same roll.
Okay. Two successes, both on Hunger Dice again. Both 9s this time.
One more.
This is a very beast-driven time, isn't it? One success.
Okay.
Oh no, 2. Sorry, that's a 6.
Okay.
2 successes.
Are they on the Hunger Dice?
One's a normal dice this time.
Okay, cool. Right, Daniel. He is slumped in front of you. A very, very quick mental math that's still driven by the fact that now that you are no longer drawn in and fully occupied by the sensation of feeding and the kiss, you are now swiftly brought crashing back to reality about where you currently are and what's currently going on. As you glance immediately to your right, you can hear people that are waiting at the bus stop that are speaking. And to your horror, it is the bus stop that is just around the corner. Very, very close to where you were moments ago, feeding. You have no idea whether or not they glanced into this alleyway, whether or not they walked past it, but based upon their tone of voice, you're guessing they didn't. Where do you want to go and what do you want to do? You know a few places off the top of your head where you could potentially take this individual. If you wanted to have a proper think, you'd need a roll about where it is potentially suitable. It depends on how safe we're talking and how private.
So you said I can make a roll for that to really think it through?
Yes, so it'd be intelligence plus. Oh no, it'd be wits plus streetwise because you're kind of thinking on your feet at this point.
Okay, sure. That's 1 dice for me. No, I failed.
Your mind draws a complete and utter blank. You think off the top of your head that if you wanted to take him somewhere where you're less likely to have people out on the street, south is probably your best bet. The reason being, although that draws you closer towards the Anarch territory, the Anarchs themselves have a pretty firm grip on their domain. And that is because most people know better than to actually go out at night there. Not because it's a particularly violent area, but because there is a unwitting understanding in most of the people in that area where it is just not generally somewhere you want to keep at night. Not because there is a crime rate there or any statistics which suggest that there is reason for them to think that. It's just not often tread by people. But maybe that's one of the best reasons why you want to take him there.
Mm-hmm.
You're unlikely to be caught while you're going down there, at least not by Kine.
But it's Anarch territory.
Yes, but you have no idea how far that Anarch territory stems. You know roughly where the cook is said to hunt, but you don't know how far that domain goes. Because ask an Anarch, and they'll tell you it's further than what Camarilla will tell you. Ask an Independent, and they'll say, I don't give a fuck. Why are you asking me? So you have no idea how far their territory spans. You know roughly where they could be found, or at least where they were believed to be found. Not the actual haven itself, but where they hunt. You know, where the last vampiric corpse was taken from. In the last skirmish they had with Camarilla.
But that's a place where people are unlikely to be out on the street?
Yeah, kind. Not because they, you know, like I said, not because people are dropping dead there. But it's just one of those neighborhoods where you don't really like to spend too much time. There are some theories about how they manage to maintain this, but given how successfully it manages to help them preserve the Masquerade when they do feed in the area, most of the Anarchs tend to appreciate the effort they've gone through to maintain it.
Okay. So, given my otherwise drawing a blank, slight panic over the situation that I have put myself in, Daniel does not think well on his feet. That is probably where he will go. If he can get this guy up the way you would sort of guide a drunk or ill friend. Do you know what I mean? Like, because if he's conscious, he can walk, right?
Yeah, he is conscious. He is, to your relief, if it wasn't for the paleness on his cheeks, he would look like someone that had just started very early in the day and had just kept going until this semi-late hour. The kind of friend where you are constantly having to make sure that their head's turned away from you, just in case.
Exactly.
It does occur to you that if you're going by foot, you're looking at about 30-40 minute walk.
Oh, it's that far.
Yeah, it's not like neighboring, but you also don't know how far between the distance of where you know they are to where they could potentially go to. It's quite a ways.
How far?
But then again, if you take him home, this guy already has I mean, the act of feeding itself has been covered up by the kiss. You have no idea whether or not he's going to remember what happened before it.
If I take him home, I'll have more time to think, which is generally what Daniel needs. It's time to plan.
Okay, are you taking him home or are you taking him to the Coterie Haven?
I would probably take him to my private haven.
Okay.
because I don't want the other two to know about this.
Okay. Do me a favor then.
Okay.
Roll me.
Because if it looks like I'm bringing a friend home who is far too in his cups, bringing him to my own place so that he can crash on my couch or something wouldn't look unusual to an onlooker?
No, it shouldn't. So roll composure, and then we'll say performance.
Okay. That's a much better roll for me. 3, 5. That is 1, 2, 3. So I got 4 successes.
Okay. When you pick him up off the floor, even though you are not the strongest kindred, it's surprising to you just how weightless they are. Despite the fact that they are pretty much going limp as you're trying to lift them, which most of the time would just be dead weight, which is frustrating as fuck to move. That didn't sound creepy at all. When you're picking him up and you basically wrap his arm around you like you're supporting someone that is heavy inebriated, his feet does kind of drag and his head lolls and he kind of glances towards people without really seeing them before his head just dips again. And you continue to move him. And there is a moment where you try and affect the persona of someone that is responsibly taking their friend home. Before you suddenly walk out with complete care, without care and complete confidence, just around that corner, and you can see people that are talking. And the moment that you come out, their eyes do glance up. The moment that they spy him, there's like a flicker of a right, okay, someone's gonna have a hangover. That kind of smile before they turn back to it as you just effectively walk past. And you start making your way westwards towards the area in the domain where you've kept your haven. Ever conscious of the fact that you're not going to a communal place. You are now going to your place. And every kindred instinctively knows that this is a harrowing experience every night of their existence, especially now. But even so, that persona you've affected does not drop. You continue to walk. Every now and again, you offer a quip or a remark to this slurring person beside you. This person, through moments ago, you were feeding off of. And every now and again, his head lifts and he sees you, and you see the pupils undilate or dilate, and then kind of lapse back as his head just dips. And then you, before too long, manage to get to the door of your haven. And it's a struggle trying to maintain a grip on this individual because he is becoming slowly more lucid. And although it would be easier just to set him down and begin making the unlocks, progressing into the haven, there is a very, very strong part of you that doesn't want to let him go.
Yeah.
So, if you'd like to describe your haven for me.
So my haven is just a small, sort of smaller than a single family house. It's really meant for one person. I can't recall if the development in this area, are they row houses or separated houses?
In this area, some of them are merged, so they're joined. And then you've got a building, you've got one or two set in them, and then it will branch off onto another one. So every now and again, you've got a few alleyways going through. But by and large, quite a few are connected. Certain residential ones are all connected up together.
So mine would be one of the end units that only shares one wall with another unit.
Yep.
And it is, on the inside, it is fairly sparsely decorated, as if I haven't been here for very long. And it's very middle class and plain, although everything is very neat, very orderly. I have a desk in here as well, even though there's no real separate office space. I do have an area of the living area set up with papers, lamps. I have a shelf full of mostly books on astronomy and some other science disciplines.
Okay.
Nothing in the kitchen area looks like it's ever been touched, but I do have things set up like a dish rack with dishes on it as if they had been cleaned. Otherwise, everything is neatly put away.
How do you keep out the sunlight?
I would probably have very heavy light blocking curtains for the windows, but the bedroom, the bedroom probably has more than that, like nailed heavy blanket behind the curtains. So from the outside, it looks like there's curtains, but on the inside, the window in the bedroom has been especially reinforced to be as light as possible.
So as you push the doors open into your haven, you immediately push it back closed with one arm and lock it. You don't need to look at this point, you know where the locks are, and you fix them in place. He is still very, very much not carrying his own weight, but you notice that every now and again he tries to plant a foot and support himself as he's slowly coming back around. What are you doing with him? Do you want a bit more time to think?
I would, yeah, because I have a plan. I just have to think it through, and I also have a question to ask about it when we get back to me.
Sure thing. Lark, you often consider yourself a calm and composed person. And whilst Kit normally knows exactly what he wants to do, it only makes it more jarring when he seems completely indecisive about where he is telling you to go. The roads that he is asking you to go down, you're pretty certain you've looped once or twice. And you're ever conscious of the fact that there isn't a lot of petrol in this car. As you watch the dial just slowly beginning to flicker towards that end point. But you keep the comments to yourself for now. And before long, you are well aware that you have gone north of over the Mancunian Way and towards the center. But then, just as you think that that he is suggesting you drop this body off towards the center of Manchester, he suddenly pulls you onto another road and tells you to drive. And every now and again, you glance at him, almost expecting him to be looking for a side road for you to pull into, just as he's been doing this entire time. But he doesn't. His eyes are fixated forwards. So you drive, and you drive, slowly heading more and more west. And then just when you are on the verge of asking him, or looking at him as if to say, where the fuck are we going? He suddenly says, stop. And you realize that the word has left your mouth, Kit, before you even realize you're saying it. And you've not even looked where you're going at this point. You're just fixated ahead. But then as the car comes to a halt and she kind of looks at you, you realize that you are outside of what looks to be a very tall, very old style hotel. One of the older ones in Manchester that has not yet been renovated. Not only because a lot of other buildings have had the budget go towards them being built up as a means of bringing more people in. Certainly newer hotels, certainly cheaper hotels, like Premier Inns and stuff like that. But this building itself is remarkably well kept for such an old building. And you get the flair of when you look at it, although you can't actually see the sign for it, it looks like something that you'd expect from an old kind of 50s or 60s movie. And Kit is not looking at the building, but you don't have to look at this building to know where you've ended up, Kit. You know the kindred that is residing in here, although you haven't gone to see her for a while. You know who's in there. And the moment that you pull up, that needle in the base of your skull just lessens slightly. But it's still there. It's almost like the tip is still there, with the ever-present threat that it's going to be pushed back in.
Okay.
You have no idea where the fuck you are, Lark.
I'm giving him a second.
Is this Mrs. Lawrence's residence?
Yes.
Yeah. So presumably we have to go and see her. Are we out to the front of it? Is there anywhere discreet to put the car and the body?
Oh, there's a number of places for you to park. There is a car park not far off. It's quite an old one. It's not as big as some of the other car parks that you'd normally have, as part of the hotel. Where this was built, the buildings that have now occupied the vast area around it have replaced the car park because they didn't need it. They didn't see that much business, despite the fact it is a very large building, very tall building. The car park that originally was there for this building has been covered over, and the communal car park, which is one that you have to kind of pay an arguably large amount of sum for if you breach over an hour stay, is around the corner. And that is probably the best place for you to park up, but it isn't immediately outside the building.
Okay. So Kit will tell Lark to go and park in that one, then it's going to be safest for a while. And so wait with the car. So I shouldn't be long. And then he's going to walk into the hotel.
Can she stop you just before you go? She'll lean over on the steering wheel and look over at Kit and just... Anything else you want to share?
No. Kit will
How long?
walk in.
How long will you be?
I don't know. I don't think it'll be too long. But then we should know what to do.
She's aware of Kit's plan. I think we established.
Yeah.
She'll nod like she's fighting with herself a little bit, but she will do what you say. And then she will say, however, if you're not back in an hour, I'm going to go.
Okay.
And she'll... We're sorry, where she's parking this, I'm assuming this is out of light, out of...
What, in the communal parking area?
Yeah, it's just like a single level.
Yeah, it's. I mean, the fence itself that's around it is basically like an old wooden one that comes up no higher than about the knee.
Okay.
That just goes around, and there's a single barrier. That looks like it hasn't ever been lowered in its entire time.
Okay. She will say...
There is a pay ticket machine next to that entrance, and quite a few cars are parked up within there, because anybody at this close, even this far west to the centre of Manchester, there are a lot of people doing overnight stays.
Cool. She'll stop Kit from leaving really quickly and say, I need you to turn this thing off before you go so that we have gas to leave when we get back.
Okay.
Because he hotwired it.
Yes, he did. I'm glad you remembered.
Kit will lean in and share which wires to pull apart to make it shut down.
Ooh. Good to know. Yep, she'll let him go.
It occurs to you, Kit, that she found fascinating, but the lock? Okay, and you make off towards the
people.
The hotel. The inside of this hotel looks just as old as the outside. It's brightly lit. There is a golden hue to the lights, and it's very old styled in where it's kept. And the person that's behind the desk is probably the only testament to the fact that you're living in modern times. Although she does look up at you and smile, this young woman, who can't be too long into her 20s, is very much sporting a uniform that contrasts, and not in a good way, to the old aesthetic of the actual building you're in. But you kind of just look at her without returning the smile. You're not there for her. And towards the end, as you turn the corner, you notice that there is a stairway that goes up. There is also an elevator. And as you are approaching this elevator, you notice that it's descending. And then as the doors open, you can see inside that the individual that was waiting outside of it, which is a gentleman that looks to be good 20 years older than you, quite a man in his 40s or 50s. He's quite a solidly built gentleman. Kind of glances over at you, observes you for a moment, and then steps in. And the only other occupants of this elevator is a slightly hunched, very kindly-looking woman in her 60s. And she's there with what looks to be a kind of push baggage, like a kind of pram that has a fold open. And she's wearing a cardigan and she's wearing a long dress. And as she kind of glances at the individual that walks in, she gives him a smile and then looks past him at you and then just gestures, holding the door open for you. He doesn't bother, but just moves towards the back and just waits.
Okay. Do I recognize the gentleman?
No.
No. Okay. Seems wise to flash of life before I step in the elevator with them then.
Okay, make your rouse check.
Failed. So that is hunger 3. Great.
Okay. So
okay.
as he's got his back turned to you and he glances at the woman, it's not an unkind glance he gives you, but you're noticing that every smile that he has received from this woman, who every time that she catches his eye, she smiles at him, he just doesn't share it. He just kind of observes it and then just looks away. But she nevertheless maintains that veneer of friendliness. But as his attention's distracted on her and distracted on moving towards that corner to occupy it, you feel your heart give one, and then your flesh goes from pale to less pale to very, very dull red, and then to a pale pink as the blood begins making its circuit. And again, you feel that very much alien sensation now of your eyes blinking and your nostrils flaring and lungs, air filtering into lungs which feel like they're being stretched like old rubber bands and then pulled taut and then stretching. And it takes you a moment to stop focusing on it, because just like the ticking of a clock, which suddenly starts after a long period of absence, it's hard to notice anything else. And then, what are you doing?
So you step in the elevator with them.
Okay. So you step in, and he observes you, but then doesn't comment. And the old lady smiles at you, and then takes her hand off the door, and it begins moving. And then you can hear her humming softly, and he is just glancing down at his watch as he looks up towards the old dial. And it's a very old style dial. It's completely unencapable, because most places have like an analog dial that says what floor. This one has an old dial that goes up and over. And then as it gets to about 3, the elevator just slows and stops between 3 and 4. And there's a shudder. And you hear the gentleman behind you. And he steps past you and reaches and presses the button. And then he presses the call button and it lights, but there's no sound. And as he stands there waiting, the old lady behind you very calmly just reaches over, opens the top of her bag, and then just pulls out a hanky and just begins dabbing her face. What are you doing?
Kit will stand in the corner and just stand there very still. And he will smile back at the old lady. It's not a gesture he uses much, so it's quite deliberate and therefore quite weird. But yeah, other than that, he's just gonna stand and wait.
So she smiles again at you as she continues dabbing, and then she moves over as though to observe the button, and then very calmly lifts the hanky and just presses it to the gentleman's face, and he immediately begins to recoil. And as he lifts his hand towards her own to try and pull it, you notice that the fingers suddenly tighten. And even though he is quite a solidly built man, and though he starts pulling, there's no movement. And with one hand, she just grips him. And he begins struggling against it, thrashing against it, but she's just holding him in place as she's observing the dial and just making sure that the light hasn't gone. And then his arm just goes limp and he just drops slowly. And she holds his weight with that hand and lowers him, and then just puts him out onto the floor, and then just slowly rises back up, moves back over to the carry case and puts the folded napkin back in, and then closes it, and then turns and looks at you and smiles again. You waited a fair amount of time before you came back and saw me this time, Kit. started to think I'm not appreciated anymore.
I'm sorry, Augusta. We had a lot going on with the new domain. It's quite large, and there are annex and things. I have to make it secure and things. I'm sorry I haven't come to see you sooner.
I'm not scolding you. I'm just making an observation. Now, could you give me a hand? I've got things to take with me.
Of course. What would you like me to carry?
She kind of glances at the unconscious man at the bottom of the elevator and just says, "There's only two things, dear. And I'm quite partial to this." And she starts wheeling the bin over as she clicks another button on the dial. And unlike before, where his presses did nothing, she clicks and then the dial begins to shudder and then move again and starts moving higher up. And then it stops on the top floor and the doors open with a ka-ching, very old warm dial. And she just begins turning the pushy out and starts moving out, and then steps out and stops and turns and glances back at you.
Kit will pick up the unconscious man best he can and sort of drag him out after.
So she immediately turns around and starts wheeling this trolley further down towards a door that's on the end. And it's one of the only doorways that actually looks used. The other ones look quite well kept, and this one is... It's not really noticeable to anyone else, but with your heightened senses, which you didn't realize you'd kicked back on, you notice that the light overhead is slightly duller. And even in that low light, however, you do note that the handle appears to have been used, not only recently, but for a very long period of time, whereas the other handles have never been touched. Because there's no smudges, there's no grease, there's no marks. This is a vacant floor. And as she kind of shuffles down towards the end, she reaches inside the bag again, ruffles around, and then pulls out one key, puts it back, and then grabs another key. And then she tests it, and it doesn't go in, so she grabs another key. And you're waiting there patiently with this man in tow. And then finally the key goes in, and then she opens the door, and then puts the trolley to one side of the door, turns and gestures for you, and then steps aside out of the way.
I'll drag the man in. If there's a place I know she prefers this sort of thing to be placed, he'll take it there. Otherwise, he'll just drag it in out the way.
Okay,
And
the door
wait to tell.
behind you, and then you can hear the shifting of the key before she returns that into the trolley. Daniel. What are you doing with this gentleman?
Now that he is in his own haven and has a moment, even though this mortal is clearly coming to, this is a place where he can think, where he is safe, where there are no prying eyes, which calms him somewhat as compared to the panic of realization that he had after feeding in the alley. There are only two options, really, to dealing with a mortal in these kinds of cases. I can kill him, or I can use him. The question for Daniel, who has never done something like that before, is whether or not this mortal is useful or worth it, or if killing him, disposing of him, is simply the better option. What he lacks right now is, again, time to investigate who this guy is, which he can do, given that he has that guy's phone in his pocket. So, given one of his flaws, he is a high-functioning addict. May I assume that he has access to certain kinds of drugs that he enjoys?
Yes. Not extremely difficult to get ones, but ones that you could get your hands on without having to go into certain contacts and allies and similar.
Mm-hmm. And I would assume that he is also the type to either share or, without their knowledge, give these things to some humans that he feeds on so that he can
In
get
his current
benefits.
state, he's not going to put up much resistance.
Mostly I'm wondering if I have something that I can sedate him with so that he will be out for a while and Daniel can take some time. Because that is the way he functions best, is with time to think, to plan. Making last-minute decisions is something he hates doing because he is not good at it.
Remind me what your predator type is.
My predator type is Scene Queen.
And what's your resources?
2.
It's likely you've got one or two things that you have left that you could sedate him with. It's not much, and it's certainly not strong enough to take him out for a long period of time. But it is something that you could use so that you didn't have to immediately worry about him becoming lucid and realizing where he was. Or rather, not realizing where he was.
So then I would probably do that, sedate him so that I can mostly have time to go through his phone and figure out who he is.
Okay. So it's not difficult to slip him the tablets. In his current state, all you have to do is draw out some water, offer it to him, and then kind of pitch his head back. And the reflex happens itself. And he begins taking these tablets without realizing. And in a cruel mockery of affection, you rub the base of his throat to encourage the tablets to go down when he doesn't immediately swallow them. And then finally they go, and you lay him out on the chair that you have. Do you still have Blush for Life active? Yes. Okay. So you pull out the phone, and as you swipe it, it does respond to your touch. But you realize then that it comes up with a display with 4 dashes and a keypad.
Oh, I thought it was a... Can I use his thumbprint to get into it?
You can do both.
Then I would use his...
as he's unconscious, you take his thumb and press it. And you realize then, because of the shininess of the screen, obviously he's one of these people that habitually wipe it down. Where you've been brushing your thumb across, there is no print. There's no grease or passage of your thumb. It's almost like you've just rubbed silk over the front of the screen. There is no mark. But the moment his thumb makes contact, there's a brief moment where the screen flashes and then it changes to a background. And you can see him there with a young man of equitable age. That he's basically in the middle of an embrace that looks quite intimate. Not worryingly so, based upon the fact he has it as a wallpaper, but it's there as a general background. You don't recognize either of well, you recognize one of them being him. The other one you don't recognize. And then it comes up with a long list of apps, notes, and similar across the top of the screen. What are you checking?
I'm curious what he does. I want to get a sense for how useful he would be as a ghoul, because that is what Daniel is considering right now.
Okay. So what are you checking?
Probably his social media to get a sense for what he does for a living and what kind of person he is.
Okay. It's easy enough for you to leap onto his social media. He has the apps there and it's an auto sign-in. So as you begin clicking through, just do a very quick, we'll say either intelligence plus, it'll be intelligence plus technology. Not high difficulty, because you are a modern kindred.
That's 3 successes.
Okay. You begin searching for the social media. It's easy for you to locate. You haven't been on social media yourself for quite some time now. I mean, social media, even for a kindred which is more embracing in technology, there's limits you don't cross. And there are ways to immediately get yourself pegged by the Camarilla. Even though they don't use it and they enforce it's not being used, there are some members in it that stick to the policy but know it enough to check for their own safety. Nosferatu being key. because information is power, and they're not going to rob themselves of that, no matter how hard the prince presses. But you begin searching through, and you notice that the name under his profile on social media is Hayden Roberts. He's in a relationship with someone called Stephen Bartlett. And you note that based upon he is currently studying at Manchester University to gain a degree in law and sociology.
Which, for someone like Daniel, is appealing. He is educated, he is ambitious, he would be useful.
So that's what you managed to gain from his social media. He doesn't use it often. There are a lot of pictures with him and his partner. There are lots of pictures with him and friends at the university. There's not a lot of pictures of him going out drinking. There's not a lot of pictures of him with family. In fact, most of his friends list can be condensed down. He has a friends list of about 300 to 400 people. But the only people that really interact with his profile after you're going through it are about 14 or 15 that actively interact with it. What else are you checking?
I'll probably check his calendar and his messages to get a sense for if he's either expected anywhere right now or how long it would be before he is missed.
Okay, so you check through the messages.
I'm going to worry.
Okay, so based upon the relationship status, you see that the top message is from his boyfriend. And as you click through, you realize that the messages that was sent, and based upon the timestamp, was being sent when you crossed the road, was that he was waiting on the bus and he'll be back soon. There aren't a great number of other... The most noticeable thing that you see is that there aren't any messages to mum, dad, anyone with his surname on there.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, based upon the fact that he hasn't got them on social media, also suggests that he's not particularly close, or at least not close in a correspondence sense with his family.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want a moment longer?
Well, off the top of my head, Daniel would probably send a text saying that either something has delayed, like, actually, does he know, can he figure out from the maps where this guy's supposed to have been going? Like how long
There's
it would
no
have taken him
address
there?
listed in the messages.
Mm.
And there isn't, it's not one of those ones where his location on social media is listed as Manchester, United Kingdom, but he doesn't have an address anywhere on there that you can note. And his email inbox is one of those ones where it's purged. So you can't tell any recent messages going through the delete bin. There's no spam, there's no deletes. So if he ever uses his email, which you're assuming he does as a law and sociology student, he's one of those people that will read through messages, sort it, and delete it. It seems the kind of thorough thing that you'd expect. So you can't see on there any invoices from, for example, Amazon or something like that, where he's had something sent to him. You're not quite sure where he is, but if he's a studying student, it's a safe bet that he probably lives on campus.
Okay.
Or close to campus.
Mm-hmm. Which is how far?
Depends on the campus.
Fair.
Okay. You've not studied for a while.
No, it's been a long time since I've been a student.
In fact, there's quite a few new buildings that you didn't even know were there, based upon a very quick Google search of, Manchester University.
Mm-hmm. So then, no, instead of sending a text, I will both turn the phone off and take the backing off it and take the battery out so that the GPS in it can't be traced.
Okay.
Oh, my poor dog desperately wants to get in the bedroom.
Okay. So, was there anything else you immediately wanted to do, or do you want a moment longer to ponder what you're going to do to this poor individual?
I think.
Okay. Lark. Kit's not immediately come back out.
No.
At this point, he hasn't been gone for a long period of time, but it's long enough that you're consciously aware of the fact that although you are sitting in what looks to be quite a vacant parking area, no one's currently coming in and out. There isn't a big gate that locks off this area. As I said, it's a very small wooden, knee-high one that goes around the perimeter of this parking area. And there are people moving back and forth. And you're constantly aware that although he is wrapped in a tarp, you have a dead body in your back seat.
Yeah.
And the engine has just been killed. So if anything were to happen, you'd have to rewire it to get it moving again. It is not a situation you find comfortable.
No. Lark is going to press her head, first of all, against the steering wheel and wonder what life choices she made to get to this point.
I've got a list.
The list gets longer.
Yes.
And is this place manned by...
No.
No, so there's nobody
No.
manning the parking.
You drive in, there's a pay machine next to where the barrier goes down. So you pay, the ticket says what time you're in, and then obviously you get people coming around and checking to make sure you hadn't overstayed. Then when you check the ticket out, you have to pay the toll for it. If you're here for longer than an hour, it jumps up considerably. You do not currently have a ticket. So if anybody was to come around, obviously you haven't got a ticket in your window, which not all of the other cars have. You get a feeling that quite a few people, that as you're doing a glance around and you can't see the silhouette of a ticket in their window, most people probably come here and hedge their bets that they're not going to get checked and then just fuck off with their car without paying.
Yeah, I feel like paranoid about cameras. Are there cameras here? Did we establish that?
Not that you can see, because it's not like there's buildings immediately flanking it. You had the end of the building, you had a road going off, and then opposite that road was where the parking area is. So glancing at the one building that kind of overshadows this, which is the hotel itself, and then a very small, stunted, squat building next to it, you can't see any cameras on it. At least nothing that would cover here.
She will do the very benign thing and just go and actually get a ticket. And that way, because the last thing she wants is somebody asking. Just have one. She'll make sure the body, first of all, is properly wrapped up. She had gone through the pockets, but she will cover it back up again. Get the ticket, and she's just gonna end up camping out until Kit comes back. She said she'd give him an hour. She'll give him a little bit longer. And after about half an hour of just sitting there and sweating, but not really, does anything happen in that 30-minute block, first of all? Just mundane waiting?
No one, I mean, there's people coming back and forth. Sometimes there are people chatting. There's sometimes larger groups. There's sometimes, especially this area is closer to the center of Manchester than your domain is. And there's a lot more foot traffic here than in your domain, and a hell of a lot more than you're comfortable with. But no one comes, where you've parked up is up in the corner. So if it's a square box and the two roads intersect like this, with being on the bottom and the right-hand side of the box, you're in the top left corner. So you're as far away from the casual observer as you can be. And it's not terribly well lit, this corner. And based upon people wandering past, unless they happen to be gargantuan, they're not going to be able to see down into your car to see, the pair of boots that might be sticking out. There aren't boots, but
no.
Even so, you're very, very present that you have a body in the back and that you're sat in a stolen car. But hey, you have a ticket.
Yeah, I do. And we'll be breathing through my mouth because she has blush up still and it's probably reeks.
Yes.
She will.
Very much to you as a kindred. It seems like your beast is particularly perceptive of anything which reminds it of its own mortality, and the smell of burning flesh is one of them.
Lovely.
So there is nothing more immediate that grabs your attention during this time. But as you're keeping an eye on the clock that's in the car, because it takes you a while to realize that the minutes are lasting fucking forever, and then you realize that, hey, the car got turned off, so the dial's not actually moving. It's one of the old ones that click. But you do keep an eye. Does Lark keep a watch?
Yeah, considering that they don't have any sort of phone, anything like that, she's probably acquired some crappy.
Yeah, I was going to check. So yeah, you keep an eye on your watch, and you realize that the 10 minutes has turned to 20, and the 20 minutes has turned to 30, and the 30 has turned to 35. And those people are really loud and very close to your car, and that body really reeks, and that 35 is now turned to 36, and you're just keeping an eye on and watching as that minute hand kind of quivers as though it's about to move, and then doesn't. And then only when you're looking away does it actually move. But you're ever present of the passage of time.
Yes.
Are you doing anything while you're waiting?
She's going to do one strange thing out of stress and boredom.
Okay.
That weird alchemy in between. She's going to look back at the body in the back seat. And she has a level 1 ability she just wants to use to see if anything crops up. Out of curiosity. She has Sense the Unseen. And yeah, and so she would like to, I mean, who knows? Maybe there's a ghost lingering about. She's going to take a look at it and...
It was you all along, Casper.
Yeah, exactly. Not expecting much, but just sort of like, just something to do.
Okay.
To distract.
You don't see anything there. I mean, you don't know whether or not that's a relief or not. But you're looking at the body and there's nothing immediately there. All you're doing is kind of trying not to focus on the parts that are thoroughly burned, and you then cover the top enough so that it's just the nape of the neck that's showing upwards. And then you realize that's not much better, even though it's not burnt. The expression on his face, it speaks wonders about what he went through, and then you end up covering that as well. Okay. Anything else you wanted to do?
No, just mentally, just being like, Kit, hurry up.
Okay, so before we go back to Kit, we're going to have a break. So we'll take a 10-minute break. So we'll jump over and I'll hand it over to Mitch while we make some furious notes and then return to escapades.
If you guys don't mind, I'm just going to go check on my dogs because I've heard them whining behind me.
Oh.
Yeah. I'm going to take just a 20-second break as well, and I'll be right back.
Let them play.
Any questions?
Let Whiskey play. Let Whiskey make the decisions for your character.
I mean, she's passed out. I've entertained the idea of letting her roll dice, so we'll see in the future.
That's the new house rule here.
Yeah, it could work. I'll be right back.
No worries. Hello. I do, actually, although she's just wandered off. I did want to give a very, very big thank, and I'll do another quick one when she comes back, to Alicia, our Alicia, that is responsible for the awesome logo that we have. And again, massive shout out to our artist, because as you can all see, the art is absolutely amazing. Just trying to find the handle so I don't give the wrong one. Da-da-da. Which is lost in my notes. I will find it and give a proper shout out. What about yourself, Mitch? Do we have any shout outs? Shout out to everyone.
Happy Tau Day, if it's Tau Day.
Hello, you can hear me now. Apologies. I was just giving a shout out to everyone watching. Hoping you're all okay with the lockdown and everything. It's obviously sort of been going on for a while now, but I'm sure it will be better soon.
Yeah.
Anyway, we got some questions from folks. So, G Mana Mission wants to know how many locks does Kit currently have on his person.
I don't know how many locks he has. He tends to carry picking tools rather than actual locks. There's possibly a couple somewhere.
Phil wants to know, how does it feel for everyone to be back?
Yeah, it's still quite nervous, but yeah, good.
Great miss.
And Altheans wants to know, what would your character do if they were in the other's shoes? So a couple of different situations going on at the moment, right? So how would you deal with them?
Anything specific?
I think if Kit was left in the car like that, he would probably just sit there very patiently for exactly 1 hour.
Exactly
True.
1 hour, and he'd
Yeah.
be tracking it as well, likely.
No, that's true.
Um,
I'm trying to think. If I were in Daniel's shoes,
yeah.
I probably
Please
would
tell
have.
Daniel.
Yeah, no, I feel bad because I'm not saying this would have worked out any better. She probably just would have let him go and just think that he'd seen something freakish and like just a weird thing, and he would have just disappeared after that. But then again, that's also quite bad. There's really no good answer.
I had no good options.
No.
And Daniel chronically overthinks things, just like me. So, yeah, no, I would do okay sitting in the car waiting for Kit. I'd be checking my watch a lot.
Yeah, I've got the easiest job right now.
Yeah. Well, you're sitting in the car with a dead body, which is...
Considering that's the easiest job right now?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I think everyone would do splendidly.
You would make all the right choices.
Yeah.
I love that old lady with the... That was
Me
great.
too. Me too.
Channeling the spirit of Mrs. Morovsky.
I wondered. It
That's
crossed
what
my
I
mind.
do.
Cameo.
Yeah, it's great seeing some of your NPCs again, Titus.
Uh-oh. Murderous old ladies included.
Yeah. All right. Well, there's no more questions from chat, so.
Also, all right. Well, I'm going to quickly do, because you missed it. Big thanks to Smeesh for the logo, which is
Oh,
I
somewhere,
love it so much.
somewhere on screen.
somewhere up here.
It is awesome.
Oh yeah,
That's
no,
gorgeous.
thank you. It's good fun
Oh,
to
yeah.
work on stuff like this. Yeah,
Yep.
coming up with that idea was tricky in itself. You saw the process. But yeah, no, I love doing stuff like this. It's design and vampires, which are like my two favorite things. Just
Nothing is better than vampires. So, and a big thanks to all the tech crew and everyone for helping
Mhm.
make streaming possible during the lockdown. Because as Mitch said, it's a ball ache. But we still have role-playing games. Yes.
I apologize in general if there is whining or scratching from my dogs. I do try
I'll
to
just
keep
assume it's your new
muted,
ghoul.
but that's great.
Horrible.
Yeah, well, happy Tau Day, everyone, because it's Tau Day and also the glorious 25th. So I hope everyone else is wearing their lilac and knows
Not
exactly.
presently, but
Towel Day a hitchhiker's thing?
Tau Day is a hitchhiker's thing.
Okay.
The glorious 25th is a Pratchett thing. And
Oh,
they're
I didn't know
both-
that.
How did I?
Cool. I wondered what that was. I couldn't tell if it was printed on your T-shirt or if it was an actual.
It's actual lilac, actual flower.
Nice.
I love lilacs.
was there any other questions, comments from anyone? Mitch? Awesome sauce.
Okay.
Cool. So, with that in mind, then we'll jump straight back into it, beginning with Kit.
Yay.
So, it's only now that you have this body so closely pressed to you as you're moving it, And with your heightened senses, it's far worse. Being in the presence of your sire momentarily masks you to the other sensation that you're feeling, and that is the crippling twist of hunger that is in your stomach. Like you've swallowed something that is 3 times too large for a stomach 4 times too small. That math doesn't make sense. It's not supposed to make sense because this is fucking vampire and it's awkward as fuck. But it is overwhelmingly present. Not to the degree where you don't have control, but it's there. And as you're moving him, gripping him about the waist, because it's the quickest, easiest way for you to move him, you're very, very, very aware of 2 very overwhelming smells. The first one is the chloroform, which still lingers around his mouth. The second is his blood, which, hidden as it is within veins, beneath or around muscle and skin, you can still smell. And you can see the veins beneath the skin pumping along the neck. But you distract yourself because you realize that as you're lifting your head and glancing, your sire is standing there just watching you. And then as you're moving him over towards the place where you normally take individuals, guests, as your sire likes to refer to them, over towards the bed. And this room is made up to be fitting with the decor. But then to a more knowledgeable person, you'd recognize that this is probably a decade, maybe 2 even older than the general aesthetic of the actual hotel. But it's the air in the room, for lack of a better, especially when you've got blush on, that makes it feel older. Everything in here, you know, is not replicas. They belong to Mrs. Lawrence. They belong to Augusta. These are things from her time. Some of them are from even older periods of time, but you know they're all authentic because she's told you they're authentic. And as you kind of lay him out on this duvet, which is older than you, it's not seen use for a very long time, but the air doesn't smell musty. As you kind of lay him out, he's breathing but not moving. And he's almost longer than the bed, because it's an old designed bed and not longer like the modern ones. And you lay him out, and you turn again and you find that she's watching you. And it takes you a moment to realize that the contrast that you're seeing now is where before there was the old lady that had the rosiness in the cheeks and, you know, that smile. She's still bearing that smile, but her skin is sunken across the jaw and across the cheeks, so much so that you can see the prominent ridge of her jaw, of her cheeks and the upper jawline. You can see where it's sunken in on the sides of the eyes. You can see the edge of the round of her actual eyeballs, and the curls of her hair, which is very, very, you know, ivory white, just looks that little bit lifeless as it clings to a head which is now slightly smaller. But the hands are almost like, for lack of a better word, flesh spiders, because the way that they move is very independent of themselves. And as she kind of moves over to you, she moves with more grace than the previous waddle that she'd adopted towards the door. Not a vast difference. She doesn't suddenly move like an energetic dancer, but there's almost like she's not touching the floor as she's moving, even though there's the lilt of her body as she's shuffling. And as she moves next to you, she places a hand on your arm and smiles. "Do you like a seat?"
Thank you, Augusta. Kit will stop arranging the man's body and we'll go.
No, I've got that seat. And she moves past you, and everything you've just done, she undoes. And she changes the pillow seating behind him and starts moving him up. And she draws back the top layer of the cover and begins drawing it over him and tucks him in almost like someone that's tucking in a child. But the way that she kind of tucks it underneath him is sufficient to pin. Because she starts on one side and then she reaches around and then begins tucking in the other. And she does it all the way towards his feet. And you're reminiscent, especially with the movement of the fingers, although you hate yourself for thinking it, very much like a spider which is slowly wrapping and encasing. And she does that all the way to the bottom. And you realize that what makes this worse is the smile that she has and the affectionate look that she gives this individual as she does it. It reminds you of your own mother, and a very sincere affection from someone that is looking after the welfare of their child. And it's the same look that she gives you. And you can't help but feel a very, very sharp and sudden stab of envy towards this individual that's on the bed. And then it vanishes because she's finished. And you hadn't seen her rise and turn towards you, but all of a sudden, from where you've been staring at this individual and you look over towards her, she's just standing there and staring at you. And then she just moves over towards the seat and then just sits down next to you and then places a hand on yours and then just says, "What can I do for you, dear?"
I felt brought here. Did you bring me here? I was so the Anarchs they put a body in my dumpster, and we had to move it, so it wasn't ours anymore. And we put it in the car, and we were dropping it off, and I felt we had to come here, so we did.
You felt you had to come here?
Yes. There was a presence at
What
the road
presence?
house. I couldn't see it, but it was there, like a silhouette of. I couldn't see it.
Someone observing you?
Yes.
That's different. And she turns and slowly picks up another handkerchief. And then she just begins wiping her hands. There's nothing on them, on the actual hands. And you can see the gentle motion that she makes with the handkerchief pulls skin taut. And what was previously showing aged, wrinkled, very pallid flesh suddenly becomes even paler as the skin is just pulled taut and then released, and then pulled taut and then released. And then she just puts it back down next to her and then shuffles again closer and then returns the hand to yours.
So we were driving, and when we went the wrong way, I could feel it was the wrong way, and then we had to go a different way. And then you had to come here. And I thought maybe you had summoned me, or you wanted to see me.
I always like to see you, Kit, but I didn't summon you.
Well, I left Lark with the car and the body.
Lark?
My coach roommate.
You should have brought her in.
We had a body as well. I didn't think you'd want that. It was a bit burnt.
She glances very slowly back over to the bed and then over towards you and then says, "The bed's big enough for two."
I can go and get it if you want. Is there a good way of bringing it in that's not past the desk?
You can bring it past.
Okay. Shall I go now?
She won't stop you, dear.
Okay. So if she lets Kit stand, he'll stand and
You're about to, and then there's a very firm pressure on your knee that kind of keeps you sat. It's not forceful, but it's resistant enough that you know the point to stop and remain seated. And she's still watching you, and there's still that smile on her face. This presence, you don't think it followed you?
It sent me here. I didn't feel like it. It didn't feel like it was watching me anymore, but it felt like it sent me here.
It sent you to me?
Yes, to the hotel, and we stopped outside.
Are we talking an observer kit, or are we talking something else?
It's that there aren't the words for it.
Because if this is a topic that we need to revisit, Kit.
It was like a pressure, like it poked me when we went the wrong way, and then the right way was okay.
This is a familiar sensation to you, Kit, the one that you had.
Yeah.
Given the previous discussions you've had with Augusta about this, has he described it in the same way?
Probably not the same way. He's probably going to attempt to describe it a different way. But
Okay, so is he trying to intentionally make it sound different?
he's trying. He's probably not doing very well.
Manipulation plus subterfuge.
Okay, that's 1 dice. Pass. 6.
Now, dear, what did we say about lying to me? I can't help you, Kit, if you lie to me.
Yes, Augusta.
Is this the same thing you've experienced before?
Yes, Augusta.
Is this what you still think it is?
I thought it might have been you. I thought you might have been summoning me.
And if it wasn't me, what do you think it is?
I don't know. You said it. It wasn't what I thought it was. So maybe it's
Say the
different.
words, Kit.
It can't have been the Dark Father because he wouldn't talk to me.
Why wouldn't he talk to you, Kit?
Because he talks to you, Augusta, and no one else.
That pressure lifts off your knee, and her hand just coils back. And then she takes the hanky, different one, and just wipes down the back of your hand. And although the tongue isn't wet, she dabs it and just brushes. And it's a familiar sensation, not necessarily from Augusta, although Augusta has done it before. It reminds you of something that your mum used to do. And that alone kind of just draws you in. And the momentary fleeting rising of the hackles that you felt during the trajectory of the discussion suddenly just lessens. And you just feel a safety overwhelm you just from the small gesture. And then she puts it back. So, your friend, your predicament, if you'd like to bring them in, I can have a look.
Of course, straight away. And Kit will hurry out as fast as he can go while still being polite.
Kit! And she turns and grabs... she has, along the next... alongside the chair, she has a selection of books. And there's nothing on the front cover of these books, but across the spine, there are Roman numerals that go all the way up to 8. There is no 7. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. And then she takes number 3, puts it back, takes 4, and then hands it to you. Hand that to Tori at the desk.
On the way in or the way out?
Before. And then when you bring in your baggage, tell her that this will be 3.
Yes.
Hand you the book.
Okay, so Kit will hurry out. When he gets to the desk on the way out, he'll...
She looks up from whatever
her
she's got in front of her. You don't recognize the device.
Okay. He'll check that her name is Tori.
She doesn't have a name tag, but she's the only one there.
He will ask, "Are you Tori?"
I am. Can I help?
he'll give her the book, but not say anything now.
The moment she sees the book, she immediately turns and looks at the number on the spine and then puts it under the desk.
Okay, Kit will head out and then go and find Lark.
Okay. Lark is exactly where you left her. But you can see the silhouette of Lark kind of led back in the chair as far as it'll go and just... And it's oddly comforting because you're pretty certain that you'd be doing the same thing, although you wouldn't be slouching, you'd be...
Okay. So Kit will rush up and he'll open the driver's side door and restart the engine. And then he'll go around and sit in the passenger seat and say, we need to drive to the front of the hotel again. And we need to take this to Mrs. Lawrence.
Who's Mrs. Lawrence?
She's my sire. She's gonna take care of this.
How? You can't just walk it through a building.
We can, yes. Drive to the front of the hotel, please.
Bite her tongue and move.
Okay. Takes the car a few adjustments to actually make it out. Although you've picked the furthest corner, you had to pick a corner that was wedged in between other cars. So with a bit of difficulty, you maneuver out in this very small, uneven space because the ground is not even. And every now and again, when you go down a particular divot in the ground, you have to double check just to make sure the body hasn't rolled off. But you drive back, turn the car, and then manage to pull out. Where you're going means that you have to, by necessity, park on the opposite side of the road because you are now driving on the opposite way and the hotel is on the other. So it does require crossing the road unless you just want to pull in anyway.
Can we Yui and...
Yeah, you can. You'd have to go all the way up and around and then come back down. You would have to go to the roundabout, come all the way around, and then come back down.
Because there's a barrier between...
It's not a barrier.
Can I just illegal Yui?
Sure. Sure. So, I don't know how Kit will feel about this, but in the middle of the road, the moment there's a lapse between people walking the pavement and there are no cars coming, Lark just does an illegal U-turn and then just pulls in. But it was more efficient.
Efficiency is better than legal. Kit's not massively worried about legal.
Yeah.
Cool. So you're not Benjamin.
I was going to say he's not Ben.
Okay. So
what?
You pull in front of the hotel, and it looks larger to you now, Lark, that you're actually there. Now that the prospect is that you will be going inside, it somehow looks larger, especially since you know that a kindred is in there. This has now changed from an old hotel to a kindred domain. And
exactly.
Outsider though you are, that is one of the very first things that you quickly learned about from your sire, is the importance of domain. Yep.
Oh no, she'll just lean over to Kit and say, what exactly are we doing? Are we just taking it in and dropping it off?
Taking the body in, and then we shall see what Mrs. Lawrence wants us to do.
We?
Yes.
Both. She wants me to come in?
She asked for your presence, yes. We should go now, whilst the road's clear.
Okay. She'll disconnect the wires as well, like it showed her. And we'll start trying to discreetly move this thing again into a building. She doesn't like this at all, but she's going to do it.
You've got a more stable grip on him because the door side that you now open up is the opposite one that you put him in through. So you're grabbing him from underneath the arms, which also saves you from the horrific sensation of things moving as you're pulling him. So you manage to drag him out, and quickly Kit moves in and grabs him by the feet, and you begin escorting him up the stairs and through the door. And the moment that you come in and Tori looks up and notices you, her eyes flicker over, see Kit, and at that point she stops staring and just goes back to what she's doing.
Kit will say, that will be 3, and carry on past.
She looks up, and then Jeff holds up a hand, reaches underneath, grabs out a volume, and hands it back to you. And it says on the spine 7.
Okay, so Kit will take that. Probably balance it on top of the body if he can't carry both at once.
I mean, it kind of teeter-totters, but it's enough. Are you going up the stairs or are you going in the elevator?
Elevator.
Okay. So, like, this is you get the aesthetic as you're kind of like watching the dread sensation as you realize that you are carrying a body past a mortal. And the moment that she clocks eyes with you, you do your absolute best to ensure that your hair is as covering of your face as it can be. But then his response and her immediate answer makes you feel mildly better. Not a great deal, but marginally better, as he leads you past the front desk towards this elevator. And he clicks the button, and you can watch above the door as a very old-style dial moves from the top floor slowly back down.
As we go up, she will just quickly ask Kit, anything I should know before I meet them?
Be polite. Be truthful. I think that's it.
You sure?
Yes, I think that's all Kit's going to say.
Does he hesitate, or is that just simple?
He will say those two things, then he'll hesitate, and then he'll just carry on. Yeah.
I'm paranoid right now. And she'll push a little bit. I know we don't have much time in the elevator, but she'll say, "What? Are you sure? Just those two things?"
Kit will hesitate again and then say, yes, yeah, if you are polite and do not lie, she'll be fine. She is a lovely person, really.
All right.
That comforts you less than you think it would.
Yeah, I know. It really... We don't have a lot of time.
Meanwhile, Daniel. Gangrel cat. Meanwhile, back in your haven, you've been scrolling over, looking through this phone, trying to find out as much as you can about Hayden Roberts. But there isn't an awful lot to find out in terms of where he resides. And then, obviously, once you found everything, you turned it off, you took the battery out, killed the GPS. He is still there. He is no longer immediately likely to become lucid because, obviously, he's now drugged. What do you want to do?
Given my point in medicine, do I know how long he'll be out for? Like, will
Based
he
on the
wake
dosage, do an intelligence plus medicine.
That's 3 successes.
Probably based upon the dosage that you gave him, it's a safe dose. You believe, based upon the fact that obviously you've drained him of blood recently. So he's not going to be fully hale and hearty, but probably looking at a couple of hours.
He'll wake up before sunrise?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, good. Given how ideal he is in some ways, Daniel has settled on wanting to make him a ghoul. Now it is just a matter of figuring out how much to say or not to say to him about it. So until he wakes up, there's not much I can do other than plan for how and what I'm going to say to him when he wakes up. Daniel would probably try to feed him the blood while he is less than lucid, like where he is half awake but not entirely all conscious.
Okay.
Because if he can, he would try to avoid that guy having a clear idea of what it was that had been done to him. He doesn't want him to fully remember clear memory of being fed blood.
So you're going to do it when he's less than lucid.
Yes.
Okay. So you reach for a letter opener that you have on the desk, and check the edge. It's quite dull, so you put it back down, and you grab some scissors that you use to tidy yourself up whenever you have the chance to before you go out. Open the blades so that it's feed, and then just make a nick. And then, because you're Blush of Life, there is a welling of blood. It's not a lot because you're not forcing it out. So you're now going to feed him how much?
In order to create a blood bond, it has to be 1 rouse check's worth of blood.
Yep. So make your rouse check.
I'll do that. And I passed. Yes.
Okay, she's down 2. So you also take 2 stains because you're initiating a blood bond, and you've abducted someone, and we're contemplating killing them. Let's face it. It's.
Yeah.
Do you have any convictions that I should know about?
The only one that I could think would even peripherally apply here is your passion is your purpose. Don't let anyone limit your dreams. I had to deal with this guy in some ways, and this is a solution to that, but I'm not sure if that's too much of a stretch. Because this
probably a stretch, because in theory, if you use that justification, you could use it for a lot of things.
Yes,
so
I could.
Probably won't.
No.
Nothing else?
No. Because my other personal conviction doesn't really apply, I don't think.
Okay. So it will be 2. It was 1, and then it's got a +1 added to that because you're initiating the blood bond. So that's an automatic +1.
Okay.
So it'll be 2. So we'll need to roll for that at the end.
Is there somewhere on my sheet that I could mark stains?
If not, just make a note of it somewhere else. I think if you click on the boxes, it might fill it. As long as you're filling it from 2 different directions, it should be okay.
Mm-hmm.
So as you make this incision and you will the blood out, that small welling suddenly has a shift, and that it's like a tap that's being very, very, very slowly turned, stopped, and then just twisted, because that trickle, that tiny little welling of blood turns into a trickle, turns into an actual drain of blood as you hold it to his mouth. And as before, his mouth automatically reacts to it. But then the moment that the consistency registers, that reptile part of his brain, he starts to try and gag. But then the moment that he actually drains some, and you hold his head back to ensure that it actually makes the passage down his throat, that reflex stops. And without waking, his mouth clamps over the incision. And you can recall a similar instance happening to yourself, where the need and the addiction suddenly just kicks in, and the euphoric taste of the blood, more addictive than the strongest heroin, just suddenly, instinctively, and at a full hilt, just hits him, and he just starts draining. And then it's you that has to stop him. Unconscious though he is, you will have to actually pull and break the connection. And you can still see the cut, you can still see the welling of the blood, but it's no longer pumping out as it was.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then I would probably... do I have to rouse to heal that?
No. It's a small...
No.
It's a small
Barely.
negligible thing.
Barely a superficial damage.
No, it's the kind of lick it closed. So as you... Don't know if that would actually work, but yeah, we'll say it was. For the purposes of this, it closes up. It's not going to be enough that you need to heal it.
Mm-hmm.
So his head goes back and his breathing begins to heighten to a level state, but it's elevated beyond what it was. And there's something eerily familiar about seeing the blush of the lip. Mainly because against the paleness of the top one, it's a very striking contrast. And it takes you a moment to realize that the reason the bottom one is so flush is because it's actually blood that's still trickled over it. And you very gingerly reach over, wipe it off, and then... Now what are you doing?
Probably not a whole lot. I would wait for him to wake up so that I can talk to him.
Okay. So, question. As a coterie, how do you lot stay in touch? Do you stay in touch? Because you're now aware that in the time it's taken you to get him back, get him settled, come to this decision, look through the phone, it's been a while since your coterie left.
And I have no idea where they are.
Nope.
Yeah.
I have
Because
no
this
idea
was not
where I
discussed.
am. No.
I think, by the way, MS, you're muted. That I think we established that we would meet on specific nights because none of us have phones.
Yeah, I think we just meet up at the Haven on certain nights or check in. But if you not want to find something, you check in there, leave a message.
Yeah.
Okay. So it would be a case of meeting back up at the Haven.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So Daniel, you have no idea what your coterie is. You have no
No.
idea what's currently the state of this body. And as pressing a concern as it is having an abducted young man that you've just made an addict of on your bed, equally as concerning is the fact that somewhere, likely in your domain still, unless they've immediately taken it out, and you have one member of your coterie that you know is slightly more, let's get this done, which is contrasting to the other member, which is more, let's think this through. And which one's which tends to change depending on what's going on. But that is both comforting and not comforting, because you've got a breach here, but you've got a potentially larger breach in the form of the ghoul. Because even if it is discovered and assumed to just be a normal, non-supernatural thing, that is the kind of treatment which is going to draw a hell of a lot of attention. I mean, you kept up with current affairs during the time. The Blood Eagle butcher killing in London garnered a hell of a lot of attention, and the poor handling of it has intensified the response of law enforcement with regards to possible serial killers in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
Couple that with the fact that those law enforcements are likely to be in some way, shape, or form kept tabs on by First Light in some shape or form. It's worth noting that just dumping a body is not easy to do, especially when the body's in the condition that it's in.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a concern.
Yeah, but given I have no real way to contact them, that is...
Oh, I know. I just wanted to remind you.
Oh, and it would definitely be on Daniel's mind. One of many things at this moment of just, I am trusting two coterie mates that I am only so familiar with to handle this without being involved myself. No small degree of frustration towards myself about how this has turned out. But there is also nothing I can do about it. I have to leave it in their hands and hope, desperately hope, that they don't do something rash.
And on the subject of, was there anything else you needed to do? Anything else? No? Okay. You've been waiting at the front of the elevator watching this dial twist and go down until it hits 1 or 0. And then the door opens. And it's a bare elevator. It's a nice, almost like brass gold tinted interior. So it's quite gaudy in that sense, but it's not over the top. It's very fitting for the period. And you get a feeling that this is probably stuff that was actually it's not a replica of the period. It's likely been here and like this for a while. And you step in to this confined space. And although you're in there with, 2 other people, one of which is dead, the other of which is burnt and dead, it's a quick reminder from your beast that you're in a confined cage-like space with another predator. And you both don't watch each other, but that's a conscious effort on both of your parts, because the beast wants you to be keeping an eye on where the other one is. So aside from the casual side glance or watching in the peripheral, you just keep your eyes forward. And particularly you, Kit, you're watching as the dial goes up. And you're waiting until it hits the final note, but then it stops 2 levels before, and the doors open. And like you see in front of you, this old lady that is very pallid, very sunken, hunched, and she's bearing a smile. But because of how sunken the flesh is, it's very skeletal-like. And it's quite unnerving, and it's not what you expected. But then just as the doors start to close, the hand comes out and holds the door. And then she just gestures. Lark, I assume.
So Kit will, of course, introduce them both properly. Mrs. Lawrence, this is my caterer mate, Lark. Lark, this is my sire, Mrs. Lawrence. It's important to do these things properly.
Pleasure.
She will nod. Likewise.
She holds her hand up.
Look at the hand pointedly, and then look at Lark.
Are we not holding the body?
Yeah, you are.
Is this story she's gesturing for a handshake or she's gesturing for the body?
Gesturing for a handshake.
Oh, all right. She will gingerly put down her end of the bundle.
Every now and again, you can hear the ding as the door tries to shut and then is forced back.
And so long as her hand isn't bloody, she'll try and wipe it off and will politely take the hand as Kit has told her to do.
I mean, you're cold. I mean, your room temperature such as, but she is colder. It's almost like she's just stepped out of a fridge. But even to someone that doesn't hold temperature, that's apparent. And she shakes it and just observes you, not impolitely, and the smile is very friendly. She very much, aside from the clearly corpse-like appearance of this old lady, has a very almost maternal air about her. And at once it is familiar, comforting, and deeply unsettling. And after she's released your hand, she just steps aside and just keeps the door held. The door's unlocked. It's the last one on the end.
So Kit will start moving. He'll make sure the book's balanced properly as they carry the body down.
Mm-hmm. She'll let him lead.
And the moment that your foot passes the threshold, she removes her hand, just flicks it back, and the door and continues up to the button that you originally pressed. This hallway, Kit, is very different to the one that you had before. It's brighter lit. The doors have all seen use. The end one is eerily identical to the one above. It does not have the same number, but the conditioning of the plates, the conditioning of the handle is almost identical. And you make towards this door. And then as you move towards it with your elbow, you click down the handle. And it opens and wedges behind you as you begin pulling him back by the feet, as Lark is forced to kind of move to accommodate your pacing. And for the briefest moment, because you've not been in this room before, to your recollection, because the room that she uses tends to change, apart from the one at the very top, which you know is her personal domain. This room is identical to the one that you were in above. And the only 2 differences that you can note is the absence of the gentleman on the bed and the absence of the napkins, hankies, tissues next to the sofa. The volumes of the books there go 1 to 6, skip 7, and have 8. Everything else is the same. And then as you're kind of waiting for Kit to stop surveying the room and move the body, you kind of glance back, Lark, and realize that Mrs. Lawrence is directly behind you and just standing there waiting. You didn't hear her move. You're perceptive.
Mm-hmm.
Don't cuddle at the doorway. In you go, Kit.
So Kit will carry on, move again. He'll say, Mrs. Lawrence, he is rather messy. Where would you like him put?
Oh, on the bed. These are old sheets. I need to change them anyway.
So
Plus, he looks very thoroughly wrapped as it is.
Kit will say thank you and carry on to the bed. So he'll be quite careful about trying to place the body right in the middle of the bed when he does, and be quite careful about trying to keep the tarp wrapped thoroughly for the time being, at least.
And she shuffles in behind you, and then she turns her back to you, and you can hear the key in the lock and the twisting of and the bolt going. And then she takes the key out and then just puts it on the side, and then turns and looks at you both. And then she looks over towards the tarp, and then just steps past you and just unveils it.
So Kit will go and stand by the sofa.
Well, very much not the thing you want to find in your rubbish bin.
No, and they broke the lock on it as well, snapped it clean in half, and damaged the lid.
Is that the hand?
Kit will reach in the pocket and put the two halves of the broken lock in her hand. And take them back. Put them back in the pocket.
Sorry, Lark. Getting taken away with business. I don't believe we've been formally introduced.
We haven't had the pleasure.
I'm Olivia Lawrence. I'm Kit's sire.
Pleasure to meet you, Olivia. I'm Lark Owens.
Take a seat, please. I'd offer you tea, but that'd be more out of habit than anything else.
We'll take the seat that she offers.
Kit will
She settles herself
sofa.
close to where Kit is. Between you both, but closer to him. And she puts a hand on his own hand. And there's a moment where she just observes him and then just studies you. Again, there's that smile, and it's that constant ambivalence of extremely familiar, extremely warm and sincere. And then on the flip side, it's the kind of smile that makes you think shark, wolf.
She's just staring without breaking eye contact.
Okay.
No. Is she staring at Lark? Is what I'm asking.
Oh, she's observing your face. So she's like, it's almost like she's noting. So she's noting the hair, she's noting the eyes, she's noticing the nose, she's noticing the mouth, she's noticing the neck, and then she's moving back up to the face, and then the smile refreshes. And then she just repeats the process, almost like she's an artist just working through details, looking at the work and then going back to it. And then after a while, she just stops, takes her hand off of Kit's, and then just puts them together in her lap.
So I don't believe I've seen you around court. I don't tend to go mostly myself, but on the occasions I don't recall seeing you there. Who's your sire?
Kent?
That's his full alias, or?
Edward Kent. He's not well known around here.
I don't recognize the name. Do you know this Edward Kent, Kit?
I have not met him, no.
Or maybe I'll make his acquaintance at court. when we go
Perhaps.
to the next. Well, as soon as it changes from that place with the awful music,
Perhaps.
the Keeper of Elysium is a little bit more modern in tastes. I prefer the more familiar surroundings. So, Kit tells me that he was drawn to bring this here,
Allegedly,
that he
yes.
saw something. Did you see this?
I did not have the opportunity to see it, no. I was driving the vehicle. I took Kit on his word, and we left the area.
He's a very honest boy, most
Cute.
of the time.
We'll just be looking at the floor when she brings this up.
So, I understand, obviously, this is a considerable issue.
Bit of a pressing matter for us. So
Now, I would be happy to, for the sake of Kit, deal with this issue for you. A favor, such as it is. But then it's not something you'd need to worry about. Who else is in this gathering, coterie?
Daniel Wright.
Like-minded. Who?
Daniel Wright.
I know that name.
The Toreador.
Ah.
Large gentleman, quite long hair.
So the this is Whittle's child.
I do not know that.
She looks at Lark.
she'll shake her head. I don't know.
Well, I'm sure I'll have their acquaintance as well. It's nice to know who my young Kit is spending his nights with. But if you need to discuss it amongst yourselves, I'm happy to accommodate for. She looks over towards a very old style clock that's up on the edge, and considers it for about an hour. After which time I have my own affairs to deal with, and obviously, if I am to deal with this, it would require sufficient planning and time to execute. So, an earlier answer would be preferred. If you have a means of determining if you'd like me to do this, I can arrange it.
What can we do for you in return, Mrs. Lawrence?
I'm sure we'll think of something. It won't be much more than a minor boon, considering it's you, Kit.
That would be very generous, Mrs. Lawrence.
Collective.
Kit will look at Lark.
For assisting us with this particular problem. That sounds reasonable.
Are you happy to speak for all of you? Obviously, I'd understand, obviously, your companion being upset about not being included, but if an agreement is struck, I would expect them to honor it. Understandably, that would make me quite upset not to have a deal honored. So would you like the hour to discuss it?
Would Kit think that the better etiquette would be to accept it as a generous offer, or the better etiquette would be
In general, or from your sire?
Well, from this particular situation, I mean, Kit will be led entirely by what the etiquette dictates.
You're not sure. You've never actually owed your sire a boon before. She's never actually made the overture.
Kit will look at Lark again then.
I hesitate to speak for Daniel.
Which is understandable, but you could understand accommodating something this damaging. I mean, it's not even... he's not in the best state.
Kit, if this is the best solution, we make up the majority vote here.
It is a generous offer. I'm not sure of the proper way to do these things. Sorry, I've not been in a coterie before. I don't know. I believe traditionally these things should be decided as a group, but like I said, this is an offer that benefits us all, and a generous offer. So perhaps we should just accept it on his behalf. I don't know what is the right thing to do.
Are you asking her?
Well, he's
Or are you asking in general?
Kit is just stating that he's not sure what the polite thing, or the correct thing to do is.
Mrs. Lawrence is just considering Lark. Very much the exact same process she did before, but she's observing you.
The problem here being that Lark has no etiquette and is trying to be as polite as possible and is following Kit's cues.
Does Kit know how generous this offer is, and if it wasn't his sire, whether it is a particularly generous offer or just
I mean, hiding a body's one thing. Hiding a body that's going to draw this much attention just purely because of how viciously it was done, I mean, you'd probably get some kindred that would demand a higher than minor boon.
Yeah.
Plus,
especially since you're near nits and you're pushovers.
We also have somebody's
the only
property.
one that would probably garner a more respectable offer is not there.
Because Kit was drawn here, he was directed here. This is obviously the place the body should go. So yeah, he will think for quite some time, and then he'll look up and say, "We will accept this offer on our behalf and on Daniel Wright's behalf. It's too generous an offer to dwell on, I believe. Thank you, Mrs. Lawrence."
Not at all. I recognize the young man, but I don't recall the name. Does anyone else know the name?
We believe he was Zachary Pritchard. I think Daniel recognized him. He said
Nosferatu's cat.
Yes, Mrs. Lawrence.
I know just what to do.
She gets up and moves over towards the bed and takes the book and places it in between 6 and 8. And then she runs her fingers across the numerals and takes 1. And then she turns and hands it to Lark.
To accept it.
And then she moves and takes 4 and hands it to Kit.
Kit will accept it.
When you go back to the desk, if you could hand 1 and then 4 over, and then just free it from your mind, it'll be sorted. and I will speak with the Harpy to let them know about the agreement.
Of course, Mrs. Lawrence. Thank you very much.
Oh, it's not a problem, Kit. But I get the feeling you have somewhere else to be. So, and she offers a hand over to Lark again.
She'll take it again, and
And the fingers coiling is very much like a
won't flinch.
locking into place. And then she just shakes it slowly as she just observes your face one last time. And then when she releases your hand, all attention towards your face just stops. And then she just moves over towards the door, takes the key, and just and opens it.
It's been a pleasure meeting you, and it's been a pleasure seeing you, Kit.
I will try not let it be so long next time, Mrs. Lawrence.
It'd be appreciated, Kit. Now, have a good night to you both. And remember, the order.
Of course, Mrs. Lawrence. The order's always important.
Okay. You stepping out?
Yes.
Okay. So the moment you step out, the door starts moving, and you can hear it behind you. And you move over towards the elevator, press the button, and then you can't help yourself, Lark, but take another look towards the door. And you find that it's slightly ajar, and she's just watching you through it. And then the door shuts.
Oh, I've got that feeling in my gut, like when you turn the lights off downstairs and you just want to go. But no, she'll...
And the doors open, and you step inside. Quickly hit that button to go down to the ground floor. Bing! And the door's back open. What are you doing now you're in the lobby?
First of all, Kit's getting a significant look in the elevator on the way down. As though she won't ask necessarily, but her face is very much going like, I'd care to explain anything? Like, although, right, he doesn't really read faces.
No, Kit will...
She'll make faces to herself.
Like this.
Just got this
and when they
image
reach
now. In one of the mirrored sides, she's just out.
Yeah. Well, and when we reach the lobby, she'll
Kit
do
was-
exactly as instructed.
Kit will remind, you must hand your book over first.
Which she will.
Okay. So the moment that the door opens, the receptionist looks up and sees you, and the device that she's currently looking at, she immediately just puts down. She takes the book, she turns, she looks at it, she puts it under the desk. And then the moment the Kit offers her another one, she stops what she's about to do, takes the other book, looks at it, puts it on a different shelf, and you can tell because she leans further down. And then she reaches further down on the other side and takes out a small bit of paper, notes it, and then takes our phone and just begins typing. She otherwise ignores you.
So Kit will just walk off at this point.
She'll follow him.
Okay. So you step back out, and you can feel the wind on your blushed flesh, and it's reassuring, but not quite as cold as the touch of the woman from upstairs. Now what are you doing?
So we need to get rid of the car. We can either put it back where we got it from, or dump it somewhere else.
I think, given it's been hot wired, we should dump it somewhere else. It'll just look like somebody took it for a joyride.
So we'll drive it back to our domain and drop it off
Not
at a different
far.
park
Yeah.
somewhere.
Kilometer or two away. Not far.
Kit, you would know, based upon how they're likely to do their searches for who stole the car, that taking a route which is unlikely to have a lot of CCTV is probably the best.
Yep. So
Because if they can identify where the car's gone, and they can actually get a picture of the people in it.
one of the people in it, anyway.
While we drive.
Well, doesn't guarantee, it just makes it unlikely you would be found. Nothing's guaranteed.
The chances are there will be a brief attempt at conversation in the car once they get rolling.
Sure.
She will, with her eyes still on the road, directing at Kit, just say, is there anything about that that you would like to explain to me?
We took the body to Mrs. Lawrence, and she offered to dispose of it for us.
Have you previously owed her a boon?
Not formally, no. She's my sire, so obviously I've done tasks for her in the past, but not formally. No.
She's gonna bite her tongue again, and I suppose, I mean, we didn't expect to end this night owing a boon to anyone, but we also didn't expect to have to ditch a body, so I don't know what's better. Let's just get rid of this car and find Daniel.
He will be waiting for us, surely. He must have finished his task quite some time ago.
Okay.
Okay. Do me an intelligence plus drive check, Lark.
Sure. Don't want to crash it.
This is more about where you're going to leave it. You will get a +1 from, I'm assuming, the kid's going to help.
Yeah. We're willpowering this really hard because that was...
So is this 2 that you've taken?
2. Yeah. Because it's a no success and a 1 angry die.
Why do you want to reroll with that?
You guys want to pop out very briefly just for a backing bit? Titus,
I'm taking a picture. So no, I had 3 die pool, and don't smile at me like that. So it's a 1 and 2 blanks, a 1 on the red, and I willpowered it, and it fixed nothing.
So you have a compulsion.
I do. This whole night is too weird. I'm not surprised. I'm trying to hold it together after having 2 Malkavians in the same room.
There's nothing wrong with Malkavians.
We got 3 of them in the same room right now.
I'm just going to go to the washroom really quick. So sorry, guys.
No.
Okay.
That was Phil's die too, so I can blame him, right?
Yep, that's how it works.
How did I get a compulsion driving? I'm just driving.
Okay.
I'm thinking too much.
It's because you're trying to logic some Malkavians at the same time.
I think that's what's happening, is she's just trying to connect dots, and there are no dots, and she doesn't know what to do.
Okay, I'm sending you your compulsion.
Thank you.
Don't thank me yet.
I'm not really thanking you. We'll see.
No, I'm going to accept it anyway. There you go. So you might want to read up on that.
I'm going to do that right now.
Okay, so you have a moment longer. I'm going to cut back to... Oh, Daniel's back. So.
Yep. Just because I need to read really quickly.
Yep, no problem. So, Daniel.
I'm back.
Have you had further thoughts about what you want to do? Are you just literally going to waste time until this individual wakes up?
I'd be concerned about leaving because it's not like I have a timer on how long it's going to be before he comes to.
Nope.
And I have no idea where those 2 are. I don't know if they're going to go back to the communal haven at some point, and I cannot go and wait for them to show up there, not with a mortal unconscious in my house. So, yeah, I'm not really sure what else I could be doing at this point.
Okay. So what I'm going to do then, because obviously they might try and reach out to you. You don't have phones, do you? I think we've established this.
Yeah, and I don't, even if my house had a landline in it, I don't know that I would give them the number because then they might be able to find out where I live.
Okay. So they have no idea where you are.
No.
Okay, so it's pretty much just going to be the fact that they're going to have to wait around. So after ditching the car, and if you're going to be ditching it somewhere close by in a means of avoiding the camera or any cameras, you're not going to go very far. You've got a long way to travel back across the city.
Where are we exactly? Are there?
You're in the
what's
western
surrounding
edge of Manchester.
Yeah.
You're in a domain that was once held by the Anarchs after they incurred, and then was forcibly retaken by Miss Lawrence.
Okay. The area that we're parked in, though, what's around?
Where you've pulled up, the area that you are currently in is somewhat secluded. You had to make sure it was to try and avoid any cameras. It's a multi-story, but it's quite a high one. It's very old. There are a lot of cars in there, but there is no foot traffic. It didn't have a barrier. It's restricted on how high a vehicle can actually go in because it's quite a stunted layout between each one. But you've managed to get up as high as you can before you drop the car, because the higher up you go, the less spaces there are. Because most people want to be able to get in and out quite quickly. So on the floor you're currently on, you're probably looking at sharing it with about 7 other cars.
Here's my question, though. This compulsion, does it kick in while we're in the parking lot or before?
The moment you would have been driving, it would have slowly just ticked over. But you are unaware of it. It is your beast guiding your actions, and you will justify it however the hell you want. You have no idea that it's not you in control of your actions. That's how compulsions work. It's not like a frenzy where you can go, that was the beast.
So when they do park, I'm assuming, Kit, you will disengage the car?
Yeah.
Do you do that from inside the car? Like, do you lean over and do it?
Yeah, if Lark doesn't get out of the car, then Kit will just lean over to do what he needs to do.
Okay. Once you've finished doing that, as though we're about to get out of the car, she's going to grab your wrist.
Kit will try and dodge.
Sure. Make a... Okay, so are you doing this to hurt, or are you doing this just to make contact?
To keep him in the car.
Okay, so then it's going to be strength plus brawl. I'll say it's going to be dexterity plus brawl. It can't be athletics. You haven't really got anywhere to move in the car.
So my strength, his dex?
Yes, because he's just trying to pull himself away from you, not physically contest you. Whereas you're trying to actually grip him and hold him in place. If you want to replace dex with strength, you can, Kit.
No. 2.
3. It was a 10 on a hunger die, too.
Yeah, I got a 10 on a hunger die. Mine
almost.
A lot of hunger die.
Combined.
Yeah.
Okay, so... So it was Lark with 3.
Yeah.
Okay, so the moment that you see the movement, you instinctively try and pull away, Kit. But then just as your hand makes contact with the car to try and pull out, the one that was currently floundering next to your thigh is suddenly yanked back, and you realize that now with one hand on the door, the other one is being grasped quite vice-like by Lark.
She's not breaking your wrist or anything, but she's holding you in place.
Kit
And she'll be a little...
quite scared at this. He'll be quite wide-eyed and...
I was going to say Lark is quite wide-eyed herself, and she will hold you in place and very pointedly with sort of a clipped tone of that you haven't really heard her use before, say, "What the fuck's your game here? Why did you take us there? Why do I owe a boon? That was in your dumpster."
It was our domain. It would have been all of our problem if they found it in our
You took me there. What are you playing at?
to the dumpster or
To your sire.
We
To the hotel. It makes no sense.
We had to go there.
We had to.
Yes.
Why
It
did
would-
we have to?
It would have been really bad to drop it at the
No.
train depot.
You took us there and I trusted you.
We got rid of the body and it's all good now.
It's not. She's going to shove you as though to get you out of the car. And she herself will get out as well.
So Kit will get out and make sure he stood well away from Lark now.
Okay. So are you moving away from the car, or are you going to keep it between you?
We're both exiting, I think.
The
Oh, wait,
same
the car's
side or
between.
separate?
The
Yeah.
car's between, sorry.
Okay, so you feel mildly safer with a car between you, Kit, but you've been briefed by Augusta about the other clans. And you've been forewarned, especially when you originally mentioned that you were... Didn't mention them by name, but you mentioned the clans of the ones that you were becoming involved with. And she forewarned you that the gang are dangerous. And she told you many stories about the reason why. And the sudden reaction by Lark, which is quite uncharacteristic from what you've experienced so far, immediately brings those stories back to mind. And you feel that needle again slowly drive in the base of your skull.
How many stories up in this car park are we? 4. Is it one of the split story ones where it's possible
You
to...
could probably try and jump to a roof if you wanted, but it's not going to be an easy jump. You are higher, but the distance is enough, which is kind of equating to... The distance is quite considerable, but you're high enough where you could probably make it, but you'd need to run up. So you'd need to make sure that she couldn't catch you if you were going to jump.
How close are other cars?
They're sporadically placed. There's about 7 with you. So you're probably looking at about 10 to 15 second run to the nearest car.
Okay. It's probably safer to jump than to tempt the beast again.
What is Lark doing? He's gotten out and his eyes are over the place. He's assessing.
Yep. Her eyes are darting now back and forth just a little bit as though she's putting pieces together. As though she really does not trust you. And her fingers are tight against the top of the car, like she's just gripping it. And are you running away, by the way?
Kit will not run, but he will be stepping carefully, keeping his eyes on her. He's going to step back. Probably, it's not decided yet whether he's going to make room to run and jump for a rooftop or whether he wants to break back and go for one of the other cars. But he's just going to sort of sidle away and put more and more space to give himself more
So
options.
he's gaining ground.
Yeah.
He's just not bolting.
Yeah, she's not going after him. But she's definitely looking at him like, I fucking know. And the car itself, by the way, did you show her just how to disengage it, or did you show her how to hotwire it?
Should how to disengage it. I would guess that hotwiring would probably just be the same process in reverse.
Yeah, I mean, you did watch him hotwire the car because you both found it at the same time.
It's not a car, it's not a hard one, it's a hotwire.
Yeah.
I'm going to take the car. And...
Okay, so as you are slowly edging away, and her nails are because it's uncomfortable to watch, and it's certainly uncomfortable to feel. But at this moment, your mind is focused on other things because you can watch as the nails begin slightly separating from the bed of the finger, where she's grinding it across the top of the car, and she's not gripping it with supernatural strength to the degree where she's digging grooves in it, but it's enough where you can see the paint beginning to coil like the top of a dessert as she's slowly grinding it across the top, making contact with you visually and then looking at things around her. And you're very, very, very suddenly caught by the images of the way that the kind of once when you watched a wildlife documentary a long time ago, the way that a lion would slowly coil itself watching something before it sprinted, and you're very, very, very strikingly reminded of that. And then as you start to move away, all of a sudden there's a noise which causes you to jar as she pulls the door open and climbs into the vehicle. What are you doing?
So
You're going to take the car?
Yep.
Kit will make sure she can't run him over. He's going to, if the stairs down are close enough, he's going to brake for those. If not, then he's going to, make the decision about what option to take, I think.
Lark, are you driving off or are you going to gun for him?
No, I'm peeling out of there.
Okay. So, the vehicle pulls back with a screech. The tires across the top of the asphalt. And then it turns. She turns the gear stick, locks it in place, and just takes off. And her eyes match you as you go past, as you're watching her. This silhouette within this darkened car as she just takes off down towards the ramp, takes it at a speed where the rear just clips the stone as it goes down, and then she vanishes. And whilst you're trying to realize what the fuck just happened, you also are very, very conscious of the fact that you are not flat, whether by lark or car, and it's reassuring that you're not flat. But that pressure in the base of your skull slowly lessens. But it's ever present. Meanwhile, before I jump back to you guys, so because I don't know what Lark's going to be doing, but if you're going to be making your way back on foot, by the time you manage to get back, we'll probably be caught up with Daniel. So I am going to jump ahead with Daniel.
Kit will probably want to go feeding on the way as well. And he'll
okay, so you would be feeding. Lark, are you just going to go and drop the vehicle, or are you going to go and do something else before you?
I am heading north. I'm heading in the direction of my own haven, and I will ditch it a few kilometers before.
Where is your haven in relation to Mancunian Way?
Quite north.
Keep in mind that where your haven is not domain.
No.
It's worth noting. Unless it's within your domain, you have no hunting rights there. Haven is just purely somewhere safe for you to sleep.
Right. Sorry, you're asking if I... right.
How far are you from your domain is your haven? Because this is going to influence what other predators are in the area.
Oh, it's quite far. It's a 40-minute walk between her place and our domain.
14-minute. So, because at the moment, where you guys parked up is the northwest end of Manchester.
Okay.
Because western end is where Mrs. Lawrence was. And you drove north towards the northwestern, as far as you could without going into the northern area, which you know is, although the Anarchs towards the north don't hold a vast degree of Manchester, they're quite, because they don't have a lot, they're very active with holding it. So you won't go up there. You've got more chance of going in the south, despite the fact that that's believed to be an area where Carmine resides.
Okay.
It's not as dangerous, weirdly enough. But you don't go too far north when you guys parked up. So you are, if this is the top end of Manchester, the top north end, you're all the way down here with your haven. Or rather, down here with your domain.
Right.
So you've got quite a drive. So I'm just trying to deduce how much time is going to pass between you guys are actually likely catching up with Daniel, because Daniel's going to be waiting for a few hours for the ghoul to wake.
She's
not the ghoul, but
driving back to the domain right now. She doesn't want to go there.
Okay, so you are going to be driving around for a bit.
Having a good think about everything that's just happened and all the pieces that have come together and all the things that she suddenly feels she's figured out. Will eventually, I don't know if the car's going to run out of gas, but it will be ditched, and she will then take off on foot.
Right. Let me know roughly, once you've had a look, whereabouts you've been driving around, whereabouts I'll tell you based upon your circuit, whereabouts it would run out of petrol, and then it'll give me a rough idea of how long it's going to take you lot to actually get back. It's going to take a while, because it's not just as easy as jumping on public transport and moving. No. Not only do you have to avoid certain places where it's suspected the SI are keeping an eye on things, because thermal imaging's a bitch, even though both of you do have Blush of Life. It's never a full guarantee. It's likely to keep you safe, but how likely is likely? Also, you'd have to go through other people's domains, so it's going to take you a while to make your way back. Meanwhile, Daniel, you are waiting around for a fair bit for this young man to waken. The breathing, which did catch considerably when in the aftermath of you feeding the blood, never quite slowed. It's almost like someone that's recovering from heavy activity got halfway through and they just kept pace. But as he slowly begins moaning and twitching on the bed, not fully waking, but there's movement behind the eyelids suggesting that he's gaining sense of himself. It's the first thing that draws you back from your reverie or your contemplation of things that are going on, and it draws your focus back over towards Hayden. Is there anything you're going to do before he becomes lucid?
Probably not. Daniel would have considered restraining him so he doesn't freak out and run away immediately, but being restrained is only going to add to panic waking in a situation like this, and his goal is to use a combination of now the blood bond that exists, awe, and force of presence to try to calm this guy when he wakes up.
Okay. Right, okay, because you know that you're building towards a blood bond.
Yeah.
You've never done it yourself, but based upon the bit of information that was fed over time by your sire, you'd know it's not a one and done thing.
Yeah, we're not.
You will be
yet.
very surprised if he's going to wake up and be like, "Ah, my liege." You know, it's not going to be that easy.
No, it takes time.
Yeah. So you prepare yourself as best you can, and as he becomes more lucid, you can clock the moment because you're good at reading people. You immediately clock the point. You immediately clock the point where he catches on to his situation, because the way that the eyes just slowly traverse suddenly becomes erratic, and the expression twists and turns. Still dulled. It's not as animate an expression as what you witnessed in the alleyway, but the moment that he realizes that he's not where he was, where he expects to be, or maybe he's just suddenly remembered the imagery of before he lapsed out of consciousness, he slowly begins pulling himself up. And his movements are very staccato. He's kind of jerking in the way that he's moving. He tries to push himself up on the bed, but based upon the fabric on there, he slips and falls himself back down. And he's looking around erratically. And the moment he sees you, it's probably a moment of ambivalence, because you immediately expect him to either scream or shout, and you're preparing yourself to move as quickly as you need to get to him before he does. Because as safe as your room is from sunlight, it's not soundproof.
Right.
So you kept yourself relatively close, suspecting this was going to happen. And although the expression on his face is fearful, and you know immediately that he recognizes you, he doesn't shout. His lip trembles, and the grip that he has on the fabric is intense because he's pulling it. The mattress cover begins coming up as well from the sheer grip that he has, and the pillows are being pushed down as he tries to practically scale the wall to make distance away from you. But when he's gone as far as he can, he just stops and stares. His eyes are wide and he is just locked on you, all of you, as he's trying to make sense of it. Because although you now have Blush of Life on, it doesn't replace the memory of what he's seen before.
Mm-hmm.
And that's clear. And as he pushes himself as far as he can, he just stops. His breathing becomes erratic, but he doesn't shout and he doesn't scream. And he is looking at you in a way that you suddenly recognize, because there is fear there, which you know. But there is also a fascination there, which you know intimately. and he is not screaming, and that is probably one of the most reassuring things that you can immediately remind yourself of, because he's able to breathe. And based upon the mumbling noises that are coming out of his throat, not coherent words yet, but mumbling noises, you know that he can speak. More or less. But he doesn't say anything.
I'm not going to move towards him yet because I don't want to startle him or scare him any more than he already is. But I will hold out both my hands in a calm down gesture, and in as calming a voice as I can, I will say, calm down. I promise I don't want to hurt you.
Glances towards the door. Doesn't move. But it's a glance you notice nonetheless. I won't tell anyone. And his hand just kind of brushes against the side of his leg. And it's the same place that you saw him reaching for when he was at the mouth of the alleyway. And you know immediately what he's trying to feel for. And under most circumstances, you get the feeling that he's probably trying to do it subtly. But in his current state of mind, it's not subtle at all. It's clear that he's trying to brush for a phone. And then his eyes, as he's glancing towards the door, suddenly dip. And he spies on where the seat is. The small coffee table that you have, his phone, it's back out, and the battery led there. And the eyes widen more. And he suddenly goes rigid. And any further plea he has dies in his throat. And his eyes just glue on you. He just doesn't blink anymore. And the color that he was getting slowly back to his cheeks, very, very slowly, but slowly to his cheeks, drains.
I will have noticed his glance, and I know he's looking at his phone, but I won't take my eyes off of him. You want your phone back. You want to go home to your lover. You want to go back to your life. You want to leave this place unharmed, don't you?
The head trembles. It's not a nod, but it's a tremble, and it's probably the closest he can manage to a nod. But it's, you take it for the assent. It's a confirmation that it's supposed to be.
Like I said, I don't want to harm you, but I need you to promise me that you will never speak of what you saw. If you do, I cannot promise you that things will go well for you.
Okay, are you using anything?
I would have awe on right now.
Okay. Just check something. Hello, very bright book. Okay. Is it just all you're doing?
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't think I have any other disciplines that would help me right
No, I
now.
was just wondering if you were arousing the blood or similar.
Or are you going to have me make a check?
Yes, because this is the kind of situation that is probably warranting one.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. So, I'd need you to make a roll, but it won't be contested. So
Okay.
it will be, because you're not, I will let you choose whether or not you want to do manipulation or charisma, but it's going to be persuasion. Although there is a threat implied there, it's not the focus of what you said.
Mm-hmm. So you said charisma or manipulation. Both are the same for me, so
Okay,
would
so it'd
the
be
same.
manipulation then by default to the power.
Yeah, manipulation plus persuasion.
Actually,
and then
that's more fitting because there is a threat implied with the persuasion. So you are trying to.
I'm trying to manipulate him with the
Yeah.
persuasion.
So go ahead and make a roll. It's going to be against a set difficulty because it's not going to be opposed.
And I get a +1 for my awe. Yeah. Manipulation.
And have another +1 as well.
5, 6, 7, 8. Okay.
Can't remember whether or not a very low level start of a blood bond gives you a bonus, but fuck it, I'm giving you one anyway.
8. So +2, so 3. Wow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is 6 successes.
Okay.
I think that's the best roll I've ever had.
Everybody gets one.
Everybody gets one, and I'm never going to get another one ever again. That was a great pool, though. That was a pool of 8 for me.
Okay. He is still rigid against the back. Did you get a critical win?
No, just
Okay.
6 successes.
Okay, so he's still rigid up against the back, and he's still watching you. But he's not looking anymore at the phone or the door. And it's clear that he is purposely trying to settle his breathing. Like somebody that is clearly terrified off their fucking rocker, but has a natural response to stress by purposely trying to ground themselves. Someone that is clearly has experience with dealing with stress, but this is going to be stressful for anyone. And he's dealing with it as best he can. And although his lies are locked on you, he's forcing himself to try and steady his breathing. He's forcing himself to try and basically ground himself. Little things he does. It's like the tongue touching the very dry lips to try and just give himself a sensation other than the visual that he's currently locked upon. And every time you move, he's no longer watching the steps of between you and him. He's no longer noticing how close you're coming. Little things that he's no longer tracking, which suggests that as best as you could under the situation, you've made the immediate flight and the immediate fight or flight response less of a priority. He's not suddenly turned around and said, you know what? You're right. And I like this place. Love the decor. He's not going that way. He's resolving himself to not do something stupid. And it's written in everything. Not only, he's not saying it, he's still not speaking, but it's the little things that you note. He's no longer acting like a cornered animal. He's acting more like someone that is utterly fucking terrified, but is coping in the situation. And that itself is immediately comforting to you because it allows you to say your piece without having to constantly watch him for signs that he's going to do something that's going to force your hand, which is just how you want him to be. Do you say anything else?
I will go over and, while kind of keeping my eye on him, take the pieces of his phone and slowly put them back together. I won't turn the phone back on.
Doesn't
yet.
watch the phone. His eyes are still on you. You can tell that he wants to, because there's a tremble in his gaze, almost like his eyeball's about to drop. But he doesn't. It's clear he's making an effort to ignore the phone, which is curious and also odd, given the situation he's in. But you get the feeling that he's drawn to you more now that his fear is less prominent. Still there, but less prominent, which means that the effects of, granted only the first step towards a bond, is now playing a part. And he's drawn more to Daniel, because Daniel is an intimidating and impressive man. And the way that you're moving and the soft ways that you're speaking and the things you said all combine to make you the most interesting fucking thing in this room. Even to someone that has two very appealing other distractions, namely the phone and the door. And you manage to piece the phone together and approach without him taking his eyes off you. Okay, so what are you doing with the phone?
I'm just going to hang on to it for now.
Okay. Anything else?
Do I think at this point that I could give him his phone back and let him go with the assumption that he won't say anything about what he has seen? Or is that something?
You're reasonably confident, but then also there is a niggling part of you that thinks the reason why he's so compliant is because you are there. You are in front of him. He doesn't have anywhere to go. Well, there's the door. He hasn't gone for it. So you're not going to be able to look at this and say, do you know what? Top notch. Good job, Daniel. Problem solved.
Yeah.
You're not that confident. But you think that you've probably, shy of getting physical or shy of showing him a reason for why he should believe you, you've probably said about, in as short of words as you could, everything you needed to.
Pardon me. So then, again, holding eye contact with him, I will slowly go to hand him his phone back. But before sort of letting him take it out of my hands, I will sort of re-emphasize that if so much as a whisper of me, what you saw, of being here, is ever to pass your lips, I'll know. There's nowhere that you could run that I couldn't find you. And you, if you do, would not want me to find you then.
You using a power for that? Do you have a power? Do you have dread?
No.
Okay.
I'm using sheer force of personality at this point.
We're going to say manipulation
and
plus
also,
intimidation. Plus
I'm
3.
also sort of suggesting to him that, because he doesn't know what I am. He doesn't know what I could do. All he knows is that I am a dead guy who is now not looking quite so dead anymore.
Pretty intimidating in and of itself.
Yeah, so I suppose I'm overstating my omniscience. Like, I'm suggesting to him there is nowhere he could go that I couldn't see, nothing he could say to anyone that I wouldn't find out about it.
Yeah.
And he has no way to know otherwise, right? He's terrified of me.
Yeah.
And
So
in awe of me.
It'll be manipulation plus intimidation. Actually, it'll be plus 4.
So manipulation plus intimidation plus 4.
Yep. For a number of reasons.
Okay. I don't actually have intimidation, but...
Well, now you have effectively 4 levels.
Yeah, that's the perfect time for it. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, I'm so glad. I'm so glad that is not a critical. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, that is 6 successes. 2, 4, 6. Yeah, I only rolled 1 failure there. Oh, that was this close. This was this close to being a messy critical.
Because then you would have shown him reasons why.
Yeah.
I am so
Completely
happy
forgot
that...
while I'm here. Ka-ching! Oh shit, that's why.
For a second, because the numbers on my hunger dice are so much more faded, I thought it was messy critical, and I was like, oh no.
Okay, so
But no. I
you
wanna take a
lean in
picture
and you
of
have
this.
the phone to hand. It's just out of reach. And Hayden's hand lifts slowly as though he's about to take it. The moment you start talking, his hand drops. But he's still looking eyes at you. And you say this to him. And it's clear from your every word that he is listening intently. And the moment you say your final part, you realize it's had the intended effect, because even as you offer the phone, his hand does not immediately go to grab it, because he is fixated. And it's only when you then jerk the phone towards him again that he actually lowers his gaze to it, reaches out and grabs it very slowly between forefinger and thumb, and then just holds it there as you recede your hand. And he's still staring at you as you step away. You letting him go?
I would sort of smile in a very controlled fashion. Like, it's not a jovial smile. It's a very small, pleasant, but very controlled smile. I do believe you are late getting home. You should hurry.
Okay. All right, so the moment you say this, he turns and he's still watching you. Legs swing off the bed, and he slowly stands up. And it's clear that he's not fully recovered, because the moment he does, he has to brace to stop himself from tumbling. But he does it blindly, because he's still focused on you. And then with the hand kind of the phone clutched to him, he's not even really looking at it, because it's still clutched between thumb and forefinger. And he steps around you. Not as far away from you as you expected someone that terrified to do. He doesn't give distance, but he doesn't step closer. And he still watches you as he goes through the door and backpedals. So he's walking backwards, still watching you, until he reaches the end and then finally turns away, looks towards the stairs, and begins descending. And there's no running, there's no quickness, there's just steps. Uneven steps from where he's struggling to try and retain his balance, especially in the wake of that. But he vanishes from sight.
I would probably keep an eye on him as he leaves, just so he doesn't, if he keels over or something, because he looks a little unsteady. But otherwise,
Okay, so are you following him, or are you looking out your window?
I would just sort of watch him go, probably from the window.
Okay, so he steps out, and you can see him kind of swaying, and he knocks into one person as they go past, and they yell something back at him, but he's not listening. His thumb and his finger are still clutched on the corner of his phone, and he hasn't moved them from that. As he walks across, he almost gets killed by a car, because a car goes past, honks its horn, and then drives past, and he just kind of stares at it as it goes past, his attention drawn to it by the sudden sound of it going past and the honking of the horn. And then he goes over to the other side and he stops, and he just turns back and he just stares at the building and towards the window, and he sees you and he stares. And then his hands just looks down at his phone, and he presses his thumb to it and looks. And the last thing to come up is the message that you looked at, that you were going to type a message on. And then he looks up again, and then clicks the phone off, puts it in his pocket, and then just staggers down the street.
He doesn't send a message or make any
No, you
calls
saw him
or
open it,
anything
and
on
then his
phone?
thumb was open. So, kind of clicked it, open it, pressed the side of the button so the light died, and then he put it in his pocket and walked off. Staggered off.
Interesting. Okay. Daniel has a hard time extinguishing the tiniest feeling of self-doubt that this was a terrible mistake, that this is a horrible thing that he has done that is going to cost him 20 years of working towards his position and status in Manchester Court. But for the most part, he's satisfied with having impressed himself upon this human who is now his ghoul, or will be, and he intends to keep him because
Yeah, he's not a ghoul yet. You'd have to
he likes
maintain that
what
over
he
time.
saw. He likes what he saw of that mortal's life and ambitions, and it's some combination of admiration, maybe a touch of jealousy that this guy has the kind of life he had when he was mortal, and in some ways has a better life than he had when he was mortal. He's interested in this mortal now. He's a little fixated.
Okay. Anything else?
And once that guy is out of sight, it's a whole lot of back to where are my coterie? Where is that corpse? What is going on with all of that? Because I have no idea what's going on with any of that.
Because now you've looked at the clock. You're pushing about 1 a.m.
Yeah. What time is dawn? Not for another few hours yet, eh? It's only 1 a.m.
Given that it is... I mean, the days are slightly longer, so you're looking more that it's going to be about 5-ish, 6-ish.
Okay, so we have another 4, 5 hours until dawn. In that case, I will probably go back to the communal haven in the hopes that I run into them.
Okay.
Because otherwise I have no way to contact them, no way to meet up with them. I did just disappear out of nowhere as well, and I left them holding the bag on that.
Yeah.
Literally.
You got
So,
this.
yeah, I will go back to the communal haven to wait for them.
Okay. So, Daniel, you would get to the communal haven because it's not far. And when you get there, it's to find the place vacant. Aside from that of the door, as you step underneath, pull it back into place, there's no one there. There's no lights on. There's no other sources. And even as you kind of check because you're different rooms, yes?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so even as you glance into the different rooms, there's no one in there. So you settle yourself to wait a bit longer. The first one to reappear, roughly about 1:30, is Kit. Because he's not going to have as far to go as Lark does.
He was going to stop when he gets into domain and go and feed.
Okay, so how are you going to feed?
Find a house, use heightened senses to sort of try and work out where the occupants are and what they're doing, and then break in stealthily and feed from someone sleeping, ideally.
Cool. Okay, so we'll say Dex plus larceny, and you can add your heightened senses to that.
Does that include lockpicking?
Yes, it will, because you've got to break in to get in.
Yeah.
And you're trying to find somewhere where they are asleep.
Yeah. Cool, that's a nice chunky place call. 4 successes.
Okay. So most of the residential areas around here are occupied primarily by, because they're relatively new buildings around here. So a lot of younger couples, young people, students that have a bit more of an income and don't need to be so close to the university tend to be in around the area. So it's not difficult for you to find a place where, based upon what you can hear at the door, and you're happy that no one's kind of wandering the halls at this time in the morning, because most people are either out drinking or are asleep. And you can kind of gauge, but it'd be odd for anyone that came past to find someone with their hood up, and not a little bit intimidating, someone with their hood up by the door just listening. As you move over to one door, because you can hear 2 voices in one, you can hear a dog in another, and that's no, you don't want to go in there. So you want to go into the next one, and then the next one, and you can hear breathing. and then you can hear a child's breathing, and then you go on to the next one, and then this one you can only hear one snoring. And you give it a while just to make sure, but there's only one. So then, confident, you begin pulling out your tools. Just begin picking the lock. Every now and again, just glancing. And then you slip inside, close the door. How much are you going to take?
2.
Okay. Okay. So you manage to find this individual who looks probably around your age, although where your blush is artificial, looks normal, but you can notice the difference with your heightened awareness. It's a subtle difference, but even in the dark of the room that you find this individual in, you can notice the difference. And it's enviable how real their coloration is. The way that their skin shines, the way that the blood moves underneath it. You can track the movement of the blood going beneath the skin, giving it its color. And then as you're reaching over just to pull back the duvet, you glance at the back of your own hand, and it's a starker contrast as pencil to pen on the same sheet of paper. Most people that would look at the back of your hand and then look at the back of theirs would notice no different, but to you, it's offensive how different it is. And the distraction's there momentarily as you pull back the duvet and then begin feeding. And the beast and the pain that comes along with it begins to recede slowly. And there's constantly that imploring familiar sensation just to keep going a bit more. Just a bit more. But you push it down. And then what else do you do?
So once finished feeding, you just lick the wounds, put the duvet back as it was, and then leave the house, shutting the doors behind him, leave everything exactly as it was.
Okay. So, and you begin making your way back to the communal haven. Although Lark's going to arrive slightly later, what does Lark do during this time? Since speeding off and abandoning your coterie mate atop a multi-story.
Are you looking for any insights into what's going on in her head?
Entirely
Or
up to you
just
what you
what
want
she
to share.
is?
If you only want to say what she's actually been physically doing, that's fine as well.
She's going to ditch the car in that area that I showed you.
Yep, which is going to take her
And-
a decent way from the haven.
Yeah. And we'll go back to her own and climb up to the roof and is going to have... she's going to pick a spot on the roof where she's fairly well hidden and have a very long and distressing think about all of the connections that she's just drawn and about she's feeling nervous and foolish over a few things. It takes a while, but after about, I think it's an hour, I think the rules dictate, she will eventually come down from all of this and start to think a little more lucidly and clearly about what she just did and how she's scared Kit and isn't quite sure if she's correct or not in what she's been obsessing over. But once it's cleared, she will eventually start heading back because she needs either answers or just to convince herself that everything is okay.
I mean, during this time, there's a lot of connections that you've made in your head. And to Lark, who is a problem solver, they make sense. It's probably one of the few things about Kit that does make sense. And you're wondering, there's a part of you that thinks maybe he's playing on that whole fucking clan stereotype to try and like lure you into this. Your sire warned you this shit would happen. You were expecting it from Daniel. You weren't expecting it from Kit. And then you come to the realization that maybe that's the problem. Maybe it's because you're not expecting it. And maybe he was right about that. But then again, maybe your sire is just telling you things because he is envious. Maybe he doesn't want you to have the things that he can't have himself. Maybe that's why he's in the shit predicament that he's in. And all these thoughts just continue to go through your head. And even when Foxen arrives, you're not made comfortable by it. Because although you kind of think later on that maybe that's not really, didn't really make sense in the moment, every time that Foxen looks at you, you get uncomfortable because it reminds you of being observed. And you don't like it. You don't like things looking at you. It's why you've come to this roof, to be on your own. And before you realize what you're doing, you're sending Foxen off, and Foxen departs. And it's only after you've begun to calm down that you actually realize that, you know, whilst everything else you could probably justify to yourself, sending Foxen away there was a pang of regret that you sent Foxen away. But by this point, Foxen's already gone. And you begin making your way back. Or was there anything else you need to do before you go?
No. She's not hungry enough to go on hunt or anything, so she'll just, in a regretful sort of way, just start heading back, and her head will be a bit messy.
Okay. Because you will return, and by the time you get back, it will be about 3 in the morning.
Okay.
So there's going to be a good hour and a half. I mean, by the time Daniel gets back, it's about 1 in the morning. By the time Kit gets back, it'll be about 1:30, and by the time you get back, it's going to be about 3. So there is going to be time for discussions and stuff at the start of the next episode, because we're going to bring it to a close now. But the next episode, you can have those discussions if you want, because obviously now you've dealt with the body. You need to confess to Daniel how, but the body is not an immediate concern. However, you've gotten rid of the symptoms, not the cause. But we can get into that next week.
We fixed it. Right.
So, thank you, everybody, for joining us again for more fun jaunts in Manchester. So thank you very much, guys, and we will see you next week at the same time. And thanks to Mitch for running it tonight, and the awesome players for fulfilling my sadistic tendencies with all the rest. Anyway, have a good night, guys, and thank you very much for joining us.
Good night, everybody.
Love you loads.
Good night.
Bye.